parents in the fight against drug abuse and reckless behaviors. The Senate, with the National Association of Nigerian Drug Monitoring, the Deputy Senate Leader, Lola Ashiru, said the time to fight the problem is now. Ashiru noted that drug abuse fuels crime and hinders attainment of quality education, urging parents to fix their homes as a major step in fight against the menace.
It is a clear call for parents, communities, and leaders to unite and take a resolute stand against this tide that seeks to wash away the dreams of our youth. As we embark on this journey together, let us reflect on the vital role that parents should play in shaping a generation.
Convener of the event, Christabel Okoye, decried the celebration of drugs in movies and music videos, saying that valuable lives have been lost as a result of such impression.
Nigeria has become a negative world among the Committee of Nations. The reason we always ask for your support to carry out this sensitization and empowerment. You sensitize them, you also empower them to get something to do, to be busy.
The Senate says the ad hoc committee is set up to investigate an alleged economic sabotage in the Nigerian oil and gas industry has not abandoned the probe, as recently reported in some media platforms. This is as the chairman of the committee and leader of the Senate, Michael Bamidele, presented a motion at plenary to resign the earlier decision on the matter. Bamidele, who explained through his motion that the House of Representatives has also set up a similar ad hoc committee to investigate the same issue, suggested that both the red and the green chambers should work together to probe the issue of sabotage in the oil and gas industry.
The Senate equally observes that there is need for the ad hoc committees of the two chambers to work jointly to avoid duplication and clash in the discharge of their assignment. Accordingly, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the Senate resolves to, 1, recapture the title of the ad hoc committee to National Assembly Joint Ad hoc Committee to investigate alleged economic sabotage in the Nigerian petroleum industry.
That the resolution of the Senate be communicated to the House of Representatives, following which the joint ad hoc committee will be inaugurated by the presiding officers of both chambers. Those in favor of this prayer, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you very much, the Senate leader, for having the foresight to configure the entire structure to deal with this matter so that we can have efficient investigation in respect to what is expected to be done.
The Red Chamber also passed a bill to provide the legal framework for the establishment of a Federal University of Agriculture and Tropical Studies, Irabuji, Osun State, after it considered a report by the Committee on Agriculture, College and Institutions presented by the committee chairman, Simeon Lalong.
That the Senate do consider and pass the bill for an act to establish the Federal University of Agriculture and Development Studies, Irabuji, in Osun State, and also the clause-by-clause recommendations of the committee on the bill is attached to this report for the approval of the Senate.
The bill was read for the third time and subsequently passed.
Colleagues, a bill for an act to establish the Federal University of Agriculture and Development Studies, Irabuji, Osun State, and to make comprehensive provisions for its due management and administration and for related matters 2024. Third reading taken and passed.
The upper legislative body also passed for second reading a bill seeking the establishment of a Chartered Institute of Petroleum and Gas Engineers of Nigeria Bill 2024, sponsored by Jonah William, who said the piece of legislation will address the growing needs for professional recognition and regulations in the petroleum and gas engineering sector.
Accordingly, the establishment of the Chartered Institute will ensure that only qualified and competent individuals are allowed to practice in this field. And this will no doubt set standards for education, training, and professional practice, as well as provide a platform for continuous professional development and accreditation.
Meanwhile, the Senate has adjourned plenary sitting till November 19, 2024. President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, made the announcement during the plenary, said the 2 weeks would afford their relevant committees to carry out oversight functions on ongoing projects to determine the level of performance of the 2024 capital projects. He said the oversight is part of the constitutional obligation of National Assembly to the Nigerian people and requested for cooperation from all MDs to ensure the success of the oversight. President Bola Tinubu is expected to present the 2025 budget proposal to a joint session of the National Assembly soon.
The House of Representatives Committee on Federal Capital Territory Judiciary on Friday taxed judicial officers in the territory on fairness and accountability. The chairman of the committee, Adamu Gamawa, made the call at a meeting of members in Abuja. Gamawa was recently appointed by the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, as a substantive chairman of the committee, said that justice delayed is justice denied, stressing the need for efficiency and effectiveness in the administration of justice. Said that the committee would proceed on an overnight visit to courts and other agencies within the judiciary. Gamawa said the purpose of the oversight was to allow the legislators know the level of progress and challenges for better performance. He called on relevant stakeholders in the judiciary to work together towards achieving the desired results. The federal government has partnered with the Health Sector Reform Coalition Nigeria, HSRC, a network of civil society organizations to help implement the Nigeria Health Sector Renewal Investment Program, NHSRIP. The Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Mohammed Ali Pate, announced the partnership on Friday during a meeting with HSRC members in Abuja. Pate highlighted that the move aims to strengthen accountability, transparency, and community engagement in health sector reform efforts, marking a new chapter in government CSO collaboration to improve healthcare delivery across Nigeria. He also endorsed HSRC's proposal to provide technical support to local governments, helping them manage increased primary health care PHC funding. The chairman of HSRC, Dr. Mohammed Lekki, outlined the coalition's role in the reform process, emphasizing the importance of accountability and involvement of community voices. He explained that the coalition would also focus on policy advocacy, raising public awareness and addressing healthcare inequalities affecting vulnerable populations. The manager of the National Emergency Medical Services and Ambulance System, NEMSAS, Dr. Saidu Ahmed Dumbowa, has urged the Kaduna State Government to commence operations of rural emergency and maternal trust fund system in the state. Ahmed Dumbowa made a plea on Friday during a press briefing at the State Ministry of Health. He said that based on the assessment, the equipment needed in terms of communication and connection of the ambulance and emergency call center were already in place. The manager added that commencing the rural emergency medical services and ambulance system was key to saving the lives of women and children, especially in places with poor indices of maternal child mortality. Ahmed Dumbowal said that if the state became beneficiary of NEMSAS, its citizens will leverage a toll-free number to call ambulances to evacuate accident victims to nearby health facilities. He said the patients were admitted and received medical care for the next 48 hours at no cost. According to him, the cost will be reimbursed by the federal government through NEMSAS. Still to come, Anambra State government set to address housing deficit in the state. 2 died, 4 injured in accident along Ota Idiroko Road. Stay with us. The People's Democratic Party, PDP, in Kaduna State has vowed to challenge the validity of the October 19 local government elections across the state in the court of law. The party condemned what it described as clandestine swearing-in of a 23 local government council chairman in the state by Governor Ubasani, saying the exercise was a shame and an attack on the nation's democracy. The Kaduna State Independent Electoral Commission, KADSIECAM, are declared candidates of All Progressive Congress APC winners of all the 23 chairmanship and the 255 councillorship seats in the state. Ajara Mohammed, KADSIECAM's chairman, disclosed this on Saturday, October 19 in Kaduna. However, PDP made its position known on Friday in a statement signed by its publicity secretary, Maria Dogo, and made available to newsmen in Kaduna. The National Democratic Front, NDF, has called on the Chief Judge of Nigeria, Justice Kudirat Kekereekun, to intervene in what it described as a severe erosion of integrity within the Nigerian judiciary, especially the disturbing judgments emanating from the crisis in Rivers State. In a statement signed by its spokesperson, Ikena Izenekwe, the group condemned what it referred to as a recent surge in conflicting and compromised judicial rulings surrounding the River State crisis, particularly those allegedly promoting the political interest of the FCT minister and immediate past governor of the state, Nyesom Wike. NDF emphasized the need for urgent judicial reform, noting that the judiciary, as the last hope of a common man, cannot afford to be reduced to a tool for personal vendetta, citing specifically recent court decisions, including an order to the Central Bank of Nigeria halting monthly allocations to River State. He noted that such court orders issued while cases remained unresolved were symptomatic of deeper systemic issues and illustrate a total disregard for the rule of law, insisting that depriving River State of critical funds endangered the lives of countless citizens, particularly rural communities, market traders, and low-income families. Speaker of the River State House of Assembly, led by Victor Okojumbo, has called on the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to conduct by-elections to fill the 27 vacant seats of the Martins Amewule-led defected members in the State House of Assembly. Speaker said a call followed the setting aside of a said suit stopping INEC from conducting by-election, saying it had become pertinent since the legal impediment stopping INEC from conducting the by-election has been removed. On the 30th of October, the suit filed by Honorable Martin Samewule and 26 other lawmakers was discontinued and was struck out. Okojumbo made a call on Friday when he addressed a press conference in Port Harcourt. He declared the only impediment to INEC conducting a by-election to fill the 27 vacant seats in the state in the River State House of Assembly was the order of interlocutory injunction restraining INEC from conducting a by-election. The Federal High Court, sitting in Lagos on Friday, ordered the final forfeiture of a sum of $2.04 million, 7 choice landed properties, and share certificates linked to the former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele. Justice Dende Dikpeolu ordered the permanent forfeiture of the monies and 2 share certificates of Queenstown Global Fund Limited Trust after holding that the former CBN governor or any other interested party did not contest ownership of the initial interim forfeiture. The court also announced forfeiture of 7 choice landed properties on the grounds that the former CBN governor Emefiele was not able to connect its lawful earnings from Zenith Bank and the Central Bank of Nigeria to the acquisition of the properties or provide documents or links to show that he owned the properties. Emefiele had denied any connection between him and the companies in whose names the properties were purchased, and the companies had also failed to appear before the court to claim the properties. The FCC had listed the companies as Amrush Ventures Limited, Modern Hotels Limited, Fineberry Properties Limited, Fidelity Express Services Limited, HNY Business Global Limited, and SDEM Erectus Nigeria Limited, among other properties. The Ogun Traffic Compliance and Enforcement Corps TRACE on Friday said 2 persons died while 4 others sustained injuries in an accident at ENUGU along Ota-Idiroko Road. The Ogun West Zonal Commander of TRACE, Adekunle Ajibade, confirmed the incident to newsmen on Friday in Ota. Said the accident involved a Toyota Camry and a tricycle. Said a Toyota Camry with no registration number wrongfully overtook and rammed into an oncoming tricycle, which resulted into 4 persons sustaining various degrees of injuries and 2 deaths. Ajibade said a corpse of the 2 male persons who died had been deposited at the General Hospital in Ota, while the survivors are receiving treatment at the same hospital. Ajibade then admonished motorists against wrongful overtaking, urging them to refrain from excessive speeding to avoid unnecessary loss of life during the ongoing Ember months. Up ahead, Georgia professor says Republican support for early voting has surged. Bolivians honor their loved ones during Day of the Dead. These and more after the break. Former U.S. lawmaker Liz Cheney said on Friday Republican U.S. presidential candidate Donald Trump's violent comment suggesting she should face a firing squad for a foreign policy stance showed it could not be entrusted with the White House and would target its enemies in office. Former President Trump, who faces Democratic U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris in Tuesday's election, called Cheney on Thursday a very dumb individual and a war hawk, noting that she and her father, former Republican Vice President Dick Cheney, refused to back his 3rd presidential run.
And I don't blame him for sticking with his daughter, but his daughter is a very dumb individual, very dumb. She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it. You know, when the guns are trained on her face. You know, they're all war hawks when they're sitting in Washington in a nice building saying, oh, gee, let's send 10,000 troops right into the mouth of the enemy. But she's a stupid person. And I'd have meetings with a lot of people, and she always wanted to go to war with people.
Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris on Friday slammed remarks by Republican rival and former President Donald Trump, who suggested former lawmaker Liz Cheney should face combat with guns trained on her.
He has increased his violent rhetoric, Donald Trump has, about political opponents, and in great detail suggested rifles should be trained on former Representative Liz Cheney. This must be disqualifying. Anyone who wants to be president of the United States who uses that kind of violent rhetoric is clearly disqualified and unqualified to be president. Representative Cheney is a true patriot who has shown extraordinary courage in putting country above party. Trump is increasingly, however, someone who considers his political opponents the enemy, is permanently out for revenge, and is increasingly unstable and unhinged. His enemies list has grown longer, his rhetoric has grown more extreme, and he is even less focused than before on the needs and the concerns and the challenges facing the American people.
Cheney, a former top Republican in the U.S. House of Representatives, is one of the most prominent Republicans to turn against Trump during a third consecutive bid for the presidency. She has endorsed Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris in Tuesday's election and has campaigned with her. Trump's campaign said his remarks were intended to criticize her as a warmonger, but critics condemned them as evidence he will target his enemies if he wins the presidential election. In Georgia, early voting has reached unprecedented levels, with over half of active voters participating. As of Friday, the final day of early voting, more than 3.6 million ballots have been cast, predominantly through in-person voting. The turnout has shattered early in-person voting, but does not match the record levels seen in 2020 of vote-by-mail options. Zachary Peskovitz, an associate professor of political science at Emory University, highlights a significant change in Republican attitudes towards early voting since 2020. He also emphasized an important demographic trend for the Harris campaign, noting that over 55% of early voters are women, which he views as a favorable indicator for our prospects.
Many of the more Republican parts of Georgia, heavy utilization of early voting. They think the question for determining who's going to win is that just substitution of people who would have voted on election day, moving up their votes to vote early in person or vote by mail, or is that actually going to be an increase in turnout and getting more Trump supporters to the polls?
Philadelphia's County Commissioner and Elections Board co-chair Seth Bluestein on Friday rebutted false claims spread by Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump and his supporters about the election in Pennsylvania ahead of Tuesday's vote, vowing to defend accurate ballot counting for the swing state's largest voting constituency. Trump and his supporters have recently stepped up unfounded allegations that probes into suspected voter registration firms are proof of voter fraud. Two of such accusations being spread are that the address of a monastery home to 55 nuns in Erie, Pennsylvania, is being used as an address by voters who do not live there. A Philadelphia homeless shelter is also being used for fraudulent voter registrations, both of which have since been debunked. But according to Bluestein, even with accurate information and fact checks available in public domain, it's been difficult to convince the accusers.
Now, for those specific allegations, they're patently untrue. Whether it was the nuns out in Erie County or the Broad Street Love organization in Philadelphia, accusations of rampant voter registration fraud and illegally registered voters, or voters who are turning in an excessive number of mail ballots is just not true. Well, I wouldn't want to ascribe motivations to individual people without being inside of their mind. But what I can tell you is it seems like while individuals for their own intentions are spreading mis and disinformation about the upcoming election, I'm hopeful that it will not have an impact on the turnout in the election. 4 years ago, we did not see a depression in turnout because of the lies that were being spread about the 2020 election, and I'm hopeful that the same is true this year.
Trump's claims have raised concerns that he's preparing to again blame a potential loss in Pennsylvania, the largest of the 7 states likely to decide the result of the election, on voter fraud. World Health Organization WHO Director General Tedros Ghebreyesus said Israel's decision to restrict UNRWA's operations contravened Israel's responsibilities, told a news briefing that this legislation jeopardized the lives and health of all who depend on essential services.
Israel's decision to restrict UNRWA's operations contravenes Israel's obligations and responsibilities and jeopardizes the lives and health of all who depend on these essential services. This ban will not make Israel safer. It will only deepen the suffering of the people of Gaza and increase the risk of disease outbreaks. There is simply no alternative to UNRWA. Tomorrow,
leaders from United Nations and several European countries reacted on social media after Israel passed the law on Monday banning the United Nations agency from operating in the country, legislation that could impact its work in war-torn Gaza. Ghebreyesus added that the third phase of a polio vaccination campaign set to begin on Saturday in northern Gaza was postponed due to intense bombardment, mass evacuation orders, and lack of access. Polio campaign began on September 1 after the World Health Organization, WHO, confirmed in August that a baby has been partially paralyzed by type 2 poliovirus, first such case in the territory in 25 years. Head of United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, UNIFIL, Haroldo Lazaro, met Lebanese Prime Minister Najib Mikati on Friday to discuss the situation around the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hezbollah militants. Parliament Speaker Nabi Berri, Foreign Minister Abdallah Bo Habib, and Lebanese Armed Forces LAF Commander General Joseph Aoun also attended the meeting in Beirut. Lazarus spoke of the urgent need to resolve issues at a negotiating table, securing a political and diplomatic solution, and full recommitment to Resolution 1701. The latest conflict between Israel and Hezbollah erupted 1 year ago when a Lebanese armed group began launching rockets at northern Israel in support of a Palestinian militant group Hamas at the start of the Gaza war. It has intensified in recent weeks, with Israel bombing southern Lebanon, Beirut's southern suburbs, and the Bekaa Valley, killing many of Hezbollah's top leaders and sending ground troops across the border. Hezbollah, for its part, has fired rockets deeper into Israel. Ukraine's national police said a Russian missile attack on Kharkiv, Ukraine's second-largest city, hit a location used by policemen on Friday, killing a senior officer and injuring 30 other people. 4 civilians were among the injured in the late afternoon attack. Police statement on a Telegram messaging app said. They said S-300 missiles have been deployed by Russian forces.
At 4 p.m. Russians launched 2 ballistic rockets towards the city. One hit the Novoslovyansky district. The exact location of the second hit is the same area, but is being established. The damages to the civilian residential area are very significant. 2 residential buildings have been seriously damaged, they are practically destroyed. It is possible that the same building was hit twice, hence the very serious damages. It is still being established. As far as the type of rocket is concerned, ballistic rockets S-300 and S-400 were used or Iskander-M. This is being investigated now.
Television footage showed rescue teams sifting through mounds of rubble. Ole Sanibov, governor of Kharkiv region in Ukraine's northeast, said some of the injured officers were in serious condition. Kharkiv remained in Ukrainian hands throughout the initial unsuccessful advance by Russian forces on the capital Kiev after the February 2022 invasion. The city has since remained a frequent target of Russian airstrikes. President Volodymyr Zelensky blasted what he called his allies' zero response to Russia's deployment of North Korean troops for the war in Ukraine, saying a weak reaction would encourage Russia's Vladimir Putin to beef up the contingent. Ukrainian leader, in an interview with South Korea's KBS television channel, said he believed Moscow was already trying to agree for North Korea to send engineering troops and a large number of civilians to work at Russian military plants. He began publicly warning of North Korean involvement in the war on October 13. Western allies have since described the move as a major escalation, but have not announced retaliatory measures or said they were preparing to implement any.
Путін перевіряє реакцію Заходу. Путін перевіряє реакцію країн НАТО. Путін перевіряє реакцію...
Putin is checking the reaction of the West. Putin is checking the reaction of NATO countries. Putin is also checking the reaction of South Korea. And I believe that after all these reactions, Putin will decide and increase the contingent. Today he is like a sapper. I talked about it with journalists not a long time ago. He is like sapper on a minefield. He is checking what will happen if he brings in this contingent. And then if nothing happens, and I believe that the reaction that is there today is nothing, it is zero, then the number of Korean soldiers will be increased on our soil. Apart from that, we know that there is an agreement in the making to transfer engineering troops as well as civilians, huge number of civilians from North Korea to work at various military plants in the Russian Federation. I am surprised by the silence out of China, honestly. I cannot say China is on our side, but China is one of the security guarantors in your region.
South Korea has offered intelligence assistance and wider cooperation on the matter, and it is considering sending a team of military monitors to Ukraine, according to South Korean officials. In prepared remarks to the UN Security Council on Wednesday, Ukraine's delegation named 3 North Korean generals, it said, were accompanying thousands of Korean People's Army troops deployed to Russia in aid of Moscow's war in Ukraine. Russia has not denied the involvement of North Korean troops in the war. North Korea initially denied involvement, but has since defended the idea of deploying troops as being in line with international law. Groups of volunteers and rescue dogs searched for survivors and victims of devastating floods on Friday, as several cars were still buried in flooded areas in Spain's Valencia region. Spanish rescuers opened a temporary morgue in a convention center and battled to reach areas still cut off on Friday, as the death toll from the catastrophic floods reached 205 people in Europe's worst weather disaster in 5 decades. In Valencia, the eastern region that bore the brunt of the devastation, about 500 soldiers were deployed to hunt for people who were still missing and help survivors of a storm which triggered a fresh weather alert in Huelva in southwestern Spain. Officials said the death toll was likely to rise as rescue efforts continued. Rescue workers scoured piles of concrete and twisted metal for survivors on Friday after a roof collapsed at the entrance of a railway station in the Serbian city of Novi Sad, killing at least 13 people. Cranes and bulldozers helped sift through the wreckage alongside dozens of rescuers and construction workers, while medical staff and ambulances waited nearby. Collapse of 115 feet length of roofing occurred at noon on a sunny day in the city, about 70 kilometers northwest of the capital Belgrade. The dead were pulled from the rubble throughout the afternoon and into the evening. Luka Kosek, who heads the Interior Ministry's Center for Emergency Management, said the rescue operation was complicated by the sheer weight of the concrete, and the operation will continue through the night.
I cannot say what is the final toll because the rescue operation is still ongoing. So far 11 bodies have been retrieved, which means 11 people have died. 3 persons were injured, and they are in the hospital, and the rescue operation for others is continuing. We will see what the outcome is. So it is not excluded, and I cannot say that this will be the end of lethal injuries. We are now focused on the rescuing part, and that is something the Interior Ministry is dealing with, and all other matters will be established by the prosecution how and why this happened and other appropriate state bodies.
Znate, mi smo sada usredsredili na taj deo Amatona. Naši spasioci koji su stigli u roku od nekoliko...
The construction that collapsed is extremely heavy. It is about hundreds of tons. Our rescuers who arrived in a few minutes immediately started the search. We immediately located one injured person who was evacuated before their arrival. One was found by our first teams, another during the search, so they were giving signs of life.
N1 News channels said the building's reconstruction had been completed this summer, but that part of a roof which collapsed had not been part of a reconstruction. A makeshift memorial with hundreds of candles illuminated the square in the Serbian city of Novi Sad on Friday in memory of the victims of a fatal railway station roof collapse. The incident, which occurred at the entrance of a railway station in Serbia's second largest city, claimed at least 14 lives. Cranes and bulldozers helped sift through the wreckage alongside dozens of rescuers and construction workers, while medical staff and ambulances waited nearby. Earlier in the afternoon, rescuers freed 2 women who had been trapped under the rubble. Five of those killed have not yet been identified, said Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić, promising justice. Bolivians marked the Day of the Dead tradition on Friday with a variety of tributes to remember the departed that are thought to come back to earth for a day once a year. From midday on All Saints' Day to midday on All Souls' Day, it is thought that the souls return to visit loved ones and also to enjoy the things they liked most in life. For this reason, relatives prepare the favorite foods and drinks of the dead. Some bring breads and cakes fashioned into the shape of humans or horses, which they say ease the journey of a visiting dead. In Bolivia, the breads are known as Intantawawa breads, which translates into bread babies. Locals also built altars in memory of animals victims of wildfires that devastated the Bolivian Amazon. That's the news this hour. I am Barry Kumado. Thank you very much for watching. Up next is ENUGU.
Who is that place? Who is this?
Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to a new day on Signature Television. Of course, this is your very show where we bring you in-depth perspectives and insights concerning stories and narratives that are trending in Nigeria and beyond. And of course, my name is Chigichi Agorom, and I don't ever do this alone. With me in the studio is...
Joshua Ritogo, wonderful to have you with us this morning. And of course, you did something this morning that reminded me of, the days of old. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Beautiful. Now, according to the time before Jesus came and before...
my goodness, and you were there,
No,
obviously.
wait. You see, these things, I reincarnated, but let's leave that alone.
Don't even go there. Don't even go
But
there.
that's not the point. The point is that before they had the punctuation marks and all those symbols, if they want to repeat something to give it more essence and more relevance, they repeat it like 3 times, like verily, verily,
verily,
like
truly,
holy, holy.
I say unto you.
Exactly. So you just did it. So good morning, good morning.
Yeah, we do that, in the 1908, in the 18th century.
If you lost your grandma in that time, you can charge the jiggy up.
All right. So please, thank you for being here and joining us. A new day continues right after this time out. Please stay with us. And if you're just joining us, welcome. This is still New Day on Signature Television. Don't forget to go on over to our social media platforms, rather, on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook at Signature TV Official. Go there, like, comment, and share. This is our newspaper headlines and review, where we highlight major stories making the rounds in Nigeria and we try to discuss them. First up is Vanguard.
The Saturday Vanguard.
Right.
And just below the mast, we have it screaming right there. Hashtag End Bad Governance Protest. Police dock minors for slum before arraignment. With the rider, police, they attempted to destabilize Nigeria, incite mutiny, shouting Tinubu must go, it's military we want. 72 others get 720 million naira bail. Arraignment of malnourished minors violates their fundamental human rights, coming from Huriwa tells Tinubu. And finally, we have social media blows up as netizens fault federal government over arraignment of minors.
I just feel like just diving right into this discussion, but let's hold our emotions.
Yes.
Put it in place and continue. Still on Saturday Vanguard, just above the mast. What should we do as INEC, SIECS are failing our democracy? With writer that says Nigerians losing hope in judiciary proffer solutions. That's on page 10 and continuing just above the mast. I won't withdraw tax reform bill, page 2, coming from Tinubu. And Obaseki launches Edo Digital Policy and commissions Nigeria's first state-owned data center in Benin. Commendable.
Amsterdam-bound Bobrisky rearrested, flown to Abuja by EFCC. You can find this on the page 8 of the Saturday Vanguard.
And finally, on the Saturday Vanguard, Nigerians not only hungry but angry. Anglican prelate, tells leaders at Imwaya's burial on page 5 of the Saturday Vanguard.
Now moving over to the Saturday Punch, just below the mast again. Screaming out there is outrage as police arraign 32 hungry children for treason. 4 collapse with the rider. Minors starved for 3 days, coming from the Defense Council. Atiku Obi slam Tinubu government. And finally, NBA, SANS, Amnesty, Serap, alleged right abuse.
Still on Saturday Punch. Marketers plan to sell petrol below Dangote's 128 naira a litre price.
Tax reform, Tinubu rejects 36 governors' opposition, insist on bill.
Interesting. And finally, on the Saturday Punch, anger greets presidential wings 9.8 billion naira rehabilitation vote.
And moving over to The Nation, just below the mast, we have no need to withdraw tax reform bill, says Tinubu with the rider. National Assembly, best place to make input, consult further.
And above the nation's mast, petrol, we want right conditions from Dangote, coming from Ipman, with a rider that says 7 vessels discharge petrol products in Lagos. And why INEC is silent on Rivers Assembly crisis, why Yakubu, with a rider that says blackmailing Tinubu Wike judiciary over local government allocation won't help you. APC wants Fubara.
How Bobrisky was rearrested, flown to Abuja, coming from the EFCC on the page 3. And on page 6, we have Lagos-Calabar Highway stakeholders meeting holds on Sunday.
And finally, on The Nation, says Ibadan building collapse. Our nightmare experienced by survivors, with a rider that says, I went to toilet and the building came crashing down, coming from the landlord.
Moving over to the Saturday Tribune. Okay, so I'm going to leave this one for you because if I take you one more time, I'm going to feel the punch. So let me just go. Above the mast, 14.6 billion naira derivation fund lands Edo Accountant General, 2 others in EFCC custody.
All right, still above the Saturday Tribune mast, Makinde Olubadan mourn victims of Ibadan building collapse on page 4.
And for the third time, I'm going to be taking this again. End bad governance protests. We have uproar as 28 minors, 86 adults face treason charge, with rider 4 underage protesters slump in court. Courts admits each suspect to 10 million naira bail.
It's funny you said you're saying it for the third time,
yes.
right? More like the very thing. Yeah.
I like that.
I think it's more than coincidence.
Yes.
Moving ahead on the Saturday Tribune, why I won't withdraw tax bills coming from Tinubu says inputs can be made at public hearings. On page 3, can be found on page 3 of the Saturday Tribune.
Lagos vows action as beggars deploy bank accounts, QR code for arms collection. With the rider, I've been begging in Lagos for 30 years, Kaduna indigent.
And finally, on the Saturday Tribune, 33 million Nigerians will face food crisis in 2025, says UN report.
Moving over to The Guardian, just below the mast, we have the U.S. presidential election, how climate change, abortion, tax, orders will shape voters' choice. You can find this on the page 4 of The Guardian.
And then on top of the masts, The Guardian masts, 2 interesting news pieces. Special feature says encroachment on power lines right of way persists amid dangers, clampdown. And disappointing UK denial of justice for Africa.
And finally, we have hashtag End Bad Governance protest, outrage over arraignment of minors in courts, and Livestock Watch, Tinubu, Ganduje, and power of intellectuals in governance.
And on the Weekend Trust, why phones cause squabbles in homes on page 5. Tinubu rejects next advice on tax bills withdrawal on page 29.
Hashtag End Bad Governance. Amnesty Serap lawyers oppose detention of teenage protesters with rider trial stalls as 4 minors slump in court. And Article B, NBA, Huriwa urge immediate release of detainees.
And finally, on the Weekend Trust, 20 years after Nigeria Airways' dream of national carrier remains elusive. Power outage, Abuja, Niger ice blocks to the rescue in Kano.
Moving over to Blueprint Weekend. We have implementation of new minimum wage, why some governors are hesitant, coming from experts and the CSO.
All right, still on Blueprint Weekend. We've accredited 102 media organizations for Ondo polls coming from INEC. Current challenges, First Lady Tinubu Rabadu to lead national prayers.
Tinubu thumbs down next recommendation on tax reform.
All right, Queen Amina's dynasty and historians differing perspectives. Interesting.
And finally, we have, okay, not finally, we still have one more. I have Nigerian pastor honored in Morocco for returning overpaid funds.
Impressive. Food security, finally, I would say on the Blueprint Weekend. On food security, federal government should have dedicated funds for agriculture coming from Olotu.
Yes, and this is the much we can take on the newspaper headlines. We will be moving over to the newspaper review, and in the studio with us is Chris Maduka.
You would wait for me to do the drum roll thing.
Let me take that again.
All right.
This is the much we can take on the newspaper headlines. We will be moving over to the newspaper review,
drum
and
rolls.
in the studio with us is Chris Maduka.
Good morning, Chris.
Good morning.
And it's Chige.
I smell sabotage.
No, nothing like that.
Like Wayo is
nothing like that.
Somewhere.
Nothing like that.
Thank you, George. Thank you, Chiki. It's a wonderful day. Another day to be a new day on Signature Television.
Absolutely.
I will give glory to God Almighty.
That's right.
Well, we know the story that is going to come up first, but I'm not going to say it because I've been saying it too much. I've been saying it more. So, Chigi, please just help me to discuss.
No, even before we got into the studio,
yes.
it's more of an outrage how minors who will be arraigned for treason. And they have been held for some time. And in 3 days, they had not eaten. In fact, I saw this video. We all know Very Dark Man.
Yes.
He too is in detention. So he said he woke up in the morning. He didn't even know the kids were there and went to, take a leak. And then he saw the kids, and it was just an outrage. So, Chris, I don't know what your thoughts are. You're smiling, and whenever you're smiling like this, it's like a precursor to
yes, he
to
just goes from, you get it.
I tell you
he
a
goes
story.
from 1 to 10.
I tell you a story. A young man was supposed to take exam at the University of Nigeria in Nsukka, and he read his book thoroughly good. He read...
Is this fiction?
This is not fiction. He read his book very well. There's a way you read and the exam is coming, it's like, let it
Bring it on.
So this guy read his book so much and he got into exam hall. Those ones they say first 3 compulsory and then 2 extra. Take choice. The man read the first one, it was, and the man like, oh God, this is good. He marked it. He read number 2 question. He read number 3 question. And after all the 10 questions on the exam, the man knew how to clear all. He dropped his biro and then straightened up and said, hey, God, I don't catch them. The invigilators assembled, bundled him to clinic, and they gave him sedative.
Psychiatric evaluation.
Yeah. He never sat for that exam. Now God catch them. We can sit here to analyze that people, young Nigerians are in detention for treason. Yesterday, God caught Nigeria. They exposed their nyash to the world that this country is a mess. We have IGP of police. We have the DPOs. We have Nigerians inside where these young people were kept. And to tell you that these people do not like Tinubu, our president, they brought this to the world to see. When we sit here and tell you, all these people that surround Tinubu that are singing praise and did this, they do not have anything to contribute in Tinubu's government. They are only there, they are paid to bring the man down. The judge ran away. Running to where? The whole court was filled, can you imagine, with children. If you look at this picture, you look at the video, and the Nigerian and the tears do not come down from your eyes, then you are not a human being. These are the people you're expecting to pay 10 million on their head. A Nigerian man, a member of the Federal House of Reps, slapped and smashed the phone of a Nigerian who did not do him anything. You gave him a bill of 500,000. And look at some street urchins. You put in detention for how long? And they are now worse than you cut them. What were their offense? They said, we are protesting, we are hungry. And in every mob action, we were even waiting to see the adults, those people, the muscle builders who want to bring down Nigeria with their ammunitions, AK-47. And these are the urchins we are saying. God, catch them.
But then,
they've exposed that in this country, that there is nothing, no element of humanity in the mind of people who govern this nation. And they have children. Some of them are grandfathers. They have wives who probably are cooling down somewhere. And they have side chicks. Some of them have many wives. They don't even remember how many children they have. And they're all doing very well. Some of them are school abroad. Some of them are riding the best cars in Nigeria, no
Well,
matter
Chris,
whatever.
I was expecting that when these kids, when they were, of course, rounded up and detained, don't they have parents? Shouldn't there have been, like, an outcry?
Is it the first time you're hearing of street children in the
The
northern
truth is
Nigeria?
that if these arraignment didn't happen, many people wouldn't have known that children were detained for this long.
Yes.
So nobody came out to say that kids have been in detention for this long, and they have been starved actually.
From Kano, you put them
to Abuja. Nobody
You're
spoke.
expecting the parents. Some of them do not even know where their children are. And for some of them who their children are living in the streets, do they have, what's the meaning of Amajeri? Born through way.
Born, yeah. Street kids.
Street kids that they put, because of Muslim religion, they put under the care of some Muslim scholars who put them together in mock of building their morale, telling them something, and they're on their own. The only empowerment they give to Amajeri before now is a plastic plate.
To beg
for food.
That's all. And you see them. You see wretchedness. You see despondency. You see poverty.
Honestly,
And these are, when they see there is mob action, these are people who will use opportunity to run around, because now it's not like where Nigerians used to travel across. There are freedom of movement when travelers go to Kano for business. I have been when Nigeria was good to travel. You will stop on the road to Kano in all those stoppages on long trip. You just bought food. Keep it to go and wash your hand. Amajeri and they will just disappear with the food. You will come and laugh and go and buy for another food. Because you know what happened. That's Nigerians for you. Such opportunities do not exist again. So it's not enough to give them empty plates, plastic plates to go into the field to beg. Hunger and hardship, even their parents that put them in the care of Muslim scholars, even the Muslim scholar who feeds him, most of times it's from what these Amajeris bring back. Because the humility of these scholars, they just want to share with them and live the same life of that nomadic life with them. These are people you rounded up, took them from Kano, put them in Abuja. And you have, when they say God catch them, you look at these boys, the way they are, you brought them that same way to the court. What was chasing the judge? Before they could say treason, 4 has already fainted.
Yeah, 4 collapsed.
And there was no medical people in line to revive them, and there was total confusion everywhere. As we are talking now, nobody can tell you the state of these children
kids
now. And probably they hand them back. For how long? If you put them, now this is on a lighter note, somebody said, will any terrorist catch a young boy like that and say he should bring 10 million? But the Nigerian government caught these children.
My God.
So what's the difference? You're looking for who we said. What's the difference? That's the height of corporate terrorism. But now God catch them. Is not the only one says the world, what they don't know in social media, this thing that happened yesterday in a small court in Abuja has gone around the world.
It has.
So you go around, tell them, all these people that junket around the planet, tell them you're from Nigeria. Tell them that in Nigeria, these are the people who commit treason. These are the people you brought, hungry boys,
kids
who are looking for opportunity to just put something in their stomach.
Well, Chris, I would want to continue this conversation, but again, it's just so much that when you want to talk about it, someone has to get so emotional about it.
I'm telling you the truth.
I mean, is there any sector of this federal government or the government or any of these agencies that anyone can trust anymore? I mean, police arrest you. It was here where you told us about somebody who stole, I think, 2 bottles of...
2 crates of...
2 crates of...
And it was 12 years in...
And 12 years.
Awaiting trial.
Is there
12 years
any
awaiting
hope?
trial.
12 years awaiting trial.
Just for
ordinarily, such offense may not get up to 3 months.
Awaiting trial.
Yes.
12 years.
12.
My goodness, I thought the judiciary system has been reformed.
Who is reforming
Under the project that then was UK AIDS,
yes,
the former
yes,
DFID,
yes.
they were doing speeding up criminal justice.
Yes,
in
yes,
Nigeria.
I remember that was
and
a
we
reform
work
like
with Prawa, and that's when we saw this kind of thing with Nigeria.
Wow.
You go to prison, they say they bring the judiciary, they go for prison liberation. There's a word they used to call it. They go there when they know the prisons are filled up and nothing is happening, and they will just bring everybody involved, both the state prosecutor, the judiciary, the legal, everybody, Minister of Justice, everybody go there. And they will start calling out, what did you do? Say he stole 2 crates of minerals at 9th Mile. How many years has he been here? I've forgotten. Some of them, their people have buried them and do remembrance, anniversary of their death, and they've forgotten them. Some of them are released from the correctional center, they call them now, and they cannot
They don't know where to, oh my God.
And you as NGOs that have moved this, you go there, working at a very low NGO officer, the people will come begging for you for transport to go to their homes. And they will even be asking how they get home. Because some of them, when they appear, all the people in the village will run away. They will say, ghost.
Ghost has come.
Ikudide. Is that not how you call it in the house? Ikudide. Ikudide. Everybody
the dead has risen.
Yeah, everybody will just take off. That is Nigeria for.
So we can't even trust the system anymore.
The system has not given us any room for trust. And that's why we keep shouting. They don't care. The Nigerian government do not, we say stakeholder engagement, this will not cost them anything to begin to engage people and begin to talk. Nigerians are very wonderful people and resilient. If they understand why they're going through what they're going through, there won't be this complaint. Remember, if anybody explained to me why I should be at this level, it will be better. At my level, I have to struggle to get information but nobody tells Nigerians anything. Nigeria is a rumor mill. You just pick any information from any angle, social media, and then some people who really want to paint Nigeria bad are using the opportunity to bring out, and then you don't have official information coming from source. If you go to some decent countries, after every 5 minutes, information, even if to repeat what they've given before, information is coming out from the office of the president.
Sure.
And there are people who their job is to sit there and they're scribbling and releasing to their organizations.
Yes.
So you are reading from
directly.
their source. Now, what does that make government to be? Even if you are telling the people lies,
they see you as transparent.
You are in charge of the lies you are telling.
That's true. That's true.
Nigeria, this country, where if the president is sick, it's a secret. Somebody will be running around thinking that the Nigerian president is sick. A public figure like that is not secret. You can only tell the world, our president is indisposed, he's sick.
We'll keep you updated as things progress.
He is at the hospital. You even take control. The hospital where it is, make sure you are in charge. You're coming out to address the press once in a while. The doctors are saying he's recuperating, and any moment from now he'll be home. You take control. But when the president is out, it happened in this country, 157 days.
Yes.
Nobody
could say
what was happening.
There's no kind of stories Nigeria didn't manufacture.
But Chris, I don't think this is a presidency thing or a governance thing. I think it's a Nigerian thing.
No, it is.
Go across organizations.
It is Nigerian thing.
Now, go across organizations.
The driving force is the people at the governance, high level of governance.
But you take people from the lower cadre.
No, but you direct their mind.
No, I'm just saying it's those same people from organizations and grassroots that eventually get up to that governance. So they take whatever idiosyncrasy or whatever mindsets they have up there. So who bells the
you
cat?
can imagine if Nigerian presidency from Asorok is releasing information about what's happening in Nigeria every minute.
I'm just saying they can't release it because they don't know that culture.
What?
Okay, how about this? Let's go to this. So, tax reform, Tinubu rejects 36 governors' opposition insist on bail. I mean, 36 governor. I think the only person who is not saying anything now is the in court governor of Abuja.
So if you have 37 minus 1, 36 said
yes,
we do not like it. The president said it must go. What are we reviewing there? It's only telling us one thing. That when people say it's Banana Republic, you will now defend it. It's your word against them. If it's not Banana Republic, why? What is happening? Why won't a president who has 36 governors in a democracy listen to them? Yesterday, he listened to the northern governors when they say that he's going to review tax reform. This morning, what we are hearing again is that he's not interested in that. If he's interested, he go to the National Assembly.
Yes,
National Assembly, some people have said, not me, and we are here debating it, that they are just an appendage of the Aso Rock. So there must be something that's giving Nigerian president this confidence. When 36 governors cannot make him to change an opinion, he believes that the Senate and National Assembly, Federal House of Reps, can back him up on that. So, but then it's good for the 36 governors. Yesterday we read in the Bible when they said we are acknowledge there's hunger and hardship, but we still support the president. In Arwala, your president is also our president, but you are closer to him than me. So Nasabi, if he feels that your opinion on the tax reform is not accommodative, he cannot take it. Good luck. Can continue to support him. Our concern is that you even support him totally. You didn't even say, sir, we said tax bill, drop it. We said this our hike in price oil. Can you touch it a little bit? Say something as Minister of Oil, Petroleum. Can you? But you guys say, we acknowledge there's hunger, but we still back the president. So what are they, who are they, I mean, what are they going to tell us? Who is it me that will sit here and tell President Tinubu to look into what the 36 governors have said when they are his supporters? So let the supporters and their president deal with the issue, and whatever they get, they take. Good luck to you, 36 governors.
All right, Chris, let's take this to the Blueprint weekend. There's this news story about Queen Amina's dynasty and historians differing perspectives. I love history, and I'm one of those people that it really pains that history has been taken out of the schools. So maybe we need to motivate someone or inspire someone.
They said there was a committee that was worked upon, and they recommended that history be removed, but it's now back. Okay. But it's back at I think SS2 or SS3. But yesterday at a lecture I went to, and now it became clear when we were talking about Igbo history, was Nzuko Umuibe.
Yes, I know.
Center for Memories.
Great.
And one Kazo, an Igbo historian and a documentarist, now positioned that the only problem we have now, you have over 2 decades of history not being available, and you are bringing it back. Who will teach? You lost everybody who will teach. It's only what you know you teach. Yes. The ones you cut off and build a big gap. Now, after 20 years, those are the ones who will go back and teach history. Now, nobody knows even anything about history. So you eventually can add it as Nigerian problem to go and import people from Senegal to come and teach Nigerian history and pay them in hard currency. Or I don't know, you go to China to bring them to teach. I don't know what they're going to do, because there is that gap that was created deliberately for whatever reason. The Nigerian government have not convinced me, because deep down me I have my own opinion of why this happened. And now they are going to pay heavily for it. Disjointed Nigerians who do not know themselves.
Is this even precedented anywhere? Is there anywhere that you go to America, they will tell you American history, Canadian history.
Everybody is proud of their history.
If you don't know your history, How can you be anywhere? If you don't know your history, I look at you, Josh, and say, your people are cannibals.
But not
you only look at them.
No,
yes.
It's an example.
Yes.
And
Example,
you
yeah.
only look at them and say, hey, is that true? You don't know your history. If you know your history, somebody said that, you say, for God's sake, shut up. You don't know anything about me. Let me tell you about my people. And you'll be proud to say, my people are not cannibals. They are human beings. And this is what they did. You refer them. Like what my examiner do once said, they did this in 1967. They did this in 1952.
That's
they did
right.
this and they never eat. They're not cannibals. That's where you become proud. So they put this only external people that we fought for at a point and pushed them away to write our own history, study our history. They are the people now who has taken over and telling us again, writing our history for us. So how can you defend what you do not know? So anything they tell you about yourself goes.
Just like telling
they can
us,
even look at you
telling
and say,
us that it was Mungo Park that discovered
a lot of, at the point it was that
narrative.
That narrative was being
pushed out.
They pushed out. They cut off the gap. So if anybody comes back and tell the generation of these children that the Mungo Park, what would they defend it? They only say, "Hey," they open their mouth and say, "Thank you. You're telling us the history of our people."
Goodness.
So they've disjointed history because of political
interests.
And then they have brought Nigeria. It's now history according to who is telling it. You know, like the Synoptic Gospel, Nigerian history according to Joshua Rico.
Wow.
Nigerian history according to Chigi. And everybody will add the coloration coming from their tribe and then try to push it not to offend his own people and our people. You put it that way and got us to nowhere. We don't have history.
What's the way forward, Chris?
The way forward is cohesion. We begin to tell ourselves the truth. If we don't look at ourselves eyeball to eyeball and say the truth the way it is, we'll continue to miss. A town, you enter, people are missing, and they're laughing. One person say, hey, they say Chris Vanaga just missed today. And the next day is Chiki. The next one is Orito. They know that nobody will be on the scene. Before they know it, everybody has missed. Nobody will know where they have gone. Nigeria is a legendary case of Obodo Nefu now. They are missing one by one. They are laughing. They don't know what hit them. They will go somewhere, like I told them, sometime in the future, in the next 20 years, to bring people from China to teach Nigerian history.
And you do know there's this video that made the rounds a while ago, Chinese children being taught Igbo language.
They've already perfected those things. That's for recolonization. They perfected all Nigerian languages in China. They have professors, they have institutes, institutions that are studying and have candidates, and they are
so
not.
So there's a recolonization agenda.
When they come and talk your language and you bring them in,
my God.
where will they, is there any free food? They take that pain to come and teach you your language for free.
And then there's an institute, a Confucius. Yes, Confucius Institute.
Initially, I was laughing at that name, but then it's just a name of a person.
They said it's Confucius. It's a Chinese name. They put an English angle.
But then they're using that so many angles to come in. But that
are we seeing this? Is the government seeing this?
They have vice chancellors in the universities who, when federal government do not give them money, if Confucius give them money to do something and do exchange and give some dangle some few traveling allowances and all, they will give up half of the campus and they build Confucius Institutes. And they will be saying it's a language exchange and all. But those people know what they're looking for. When the time is ripe, they will hit you real bad.
Okay, so interesting one. Marketers plan to sell petrol below Dangote's 1,028 naira per litre.
So what are they waiting for?
They're planning. You know, Nigerians will like to plan and plan.
Every day.
I told you,
this is what we
plan and plan, set up
committee.
Set up committee.
You know what happens when it comes to fuel? Do you know, even if the quantity of fuel we consume has dropped, because everybody has dropped their car, at least if nobody has dropped, I dropped mine.
Yes.
Now, if you minus one car, the quantity of fuel we're spending has dropped down. Now, whatever that means, it means that we still have every day Nigerians
the demand for fuel is going
at
down.
1,200 naira. It still goes back with every expenses paid and the gain margin they put in it high and they take it. That's why they don't want it settled. Tomorrow is Dangote that will say, hey, this is the first time we're hearing that Dangote is selling fuel.
Selling, yes, actually.
But why is it marketers that are telling us? Nigerians will bear me witness. I've said on these days, let Dangote tell us how much. Before they didn't allow him say, NNPCL came and said this is what they want to buy. And the point they pull out, yesterday it was, Ipman said we cannot buy from Dangote until, let's say, NNPCL direct us. Today, we now hear how many shiploads that are being discharged. When Dangote has cried 2 days ago that he has billions of liters, buying fallow at a high
it's costing him,
to
yes,
return.
yes.
And nobody's saying anything. We didn't tell you. Take whatever Ipman tells you, and you find yourself working in Alaska. There's no single truth coming from all of them. All! They are filled with lies. They've not told Nigerians what this is all about. What it's all about is they want to make this money, and at whoever, no matter whose ox is God, these people are bent on. They've gotten used to this money. It's like somebody who has been on cocaine, high dose of it. You want to withdraw. That's the Ipman, NNPCL, and all of them. They don't want Nigerians to breathe.
All right. Can we just talk a little bit about this Bobrisky issue?
No, Chris doesn't like. Chris doesn't. That I saw it on this one. I just said it. I was not going to ask Chris because I know Chris doesn't like to discuss
with this crisis in Nigeria,
you think
I'm talking about the confusion of somebody who's confused.
Chris doesn't like to discuss.
What is he?
Chris
is he a man
like
or woman?
I don't even know. Neither.
What are we talking about? Somebody we
all
don't know
right,
identity.
let's talk about the building collapse. All right.
Building collapse.
Yeah,
This kind of thing. I know. They've just said what they went through. Our nightmare experience.
Someone actually went into the loo and the house came crashing down.
The 80-year-old man who lost 5 grandchildren.
Oh my goodness.
And 16 other members of the tenants who lived in his house. He said he was in the toilet and the house came crashing. Can you imagine? And this is the only time Makinde is talking about. We have talked about. Has Makinde tell to look at the Ibadan is a historical town.
Yeah.
And if you have lived in Ibadan, you know that Ibadan is segmented. This is a town that Gabriel Okara wrote in a poem. He said, Ibadan is a city that is placed on 7 hills of Ibadan. You have 7 Okes. Shakpati, this. In Ibadan, there's a town running, is running of gold and rust. You know the rust?
Yeah.
Go to those historical areas, you look at the roof.
The brown roof.
Then go to Bodija, go to Jericho, go to the GRAs. You now see the gold and rust existing together. And that town is a town you would love to study. I've said it here and I'll say it again. This is a town where you go into the market. If you have 1 naira, they will cut yam of 1 naira for you. If they're selling pepper, they give you pepper. They will just make sure with 1 naira, give you food for 1 naira. You can eat at that moment.
Chiki, this is actually very true. I've stayed in Ibadan. Ibadan is a beautiful
I lived and
city
worked
to
in
stay.
Ibadan. Ibadan has a way.
I really don't have much about Ibadan.
Both the rich
coexisting.
and the poor. Now, when you go to the rust areas, these are some of the houses that are more than 250 years.
Oh, and I guess...
And they have structural issues now.
Because of the age.
That the local government are collecting tenancy levies and nobody is looking at the structure. Are these people who collect these tenancy levies and all the taxes? Even Makinde, as the governor of the state, is coming now to
like you always say,
that all governors do.
Yeah, Chris, like you always say, it's not just about a government at the national or state levels. Those are the grassroots, the local government. Shouldn't they take some blame in this?
That is what I'm saying. These are people, all you know. I said, go out in Ibadan now, just want to put a small shop. Before you just put a nail to the people have come with red paint and say stop work. Who are they? They only want to stop work. You go and negotiate or pay whatever they want. They don't care what happens after. Build anything, let the house collapse and throw how many dies. Governor will come and say we are sorry. And that's all they've been sorry about.
Oh God.
Nobody wants to take responsibility. And we have had too many building collapses in Nigeria. Nobody now is talking about so houses are too old for Nigeria. Some houses are older than Nigeria itself. Some houses are beyond 1914.
True.
And people are living in it. Go to Ibadan, you see what I'm talking about. Some of them are as old as 1801.
And they are still standing.
People are still there. So when it collapses, especially when people start suffering hunger and hardship, they will see a house that cannot even have take up to 10 people. They will start adding structures to partitioning and but the foundation might not carry whatever you're trying to do, and then it will cave in and people will die.
Okay, so Chris, we have, I don't know, would I say a lot of sad stories, but just like you said at one point, there's never a good news coming from these stories. But moving over to the nation above the mass, we have why INEC is silent on Rivers Assembly crisis.
That is actually the news piece that I had my book.
And we have not read the details. Why are they silent?
Now, see, I'm now saying blackmailing Tinubu, Wike, judiciary over local government allocation won't help you. APC is warning Fubara.
Fubara, of course, is the opposition.
What did you expect?
Of course, is the opposition.
They're only doing the last battle. If it's not, I say it again, if it's not the way Fubara followed the fight, Fubara would have been a history. If a madman enter your house, let me leave the madman issue. Let me use another analogy. If you want to catch a monkey, you behave like monkey. Now, suffer, they take catch monkey. If you catch an giddy, go bite you. So, whoever want to catch Fubara giddy has gotten the fight. And all these ones that are talking now. Fubara is the governor of River State. And nothing has taken away from his status. And it's not the first time in history. So the history will repeat itself. You hold the allocation of River State. That's the worst all these things can do. He has fought to them and won them almost on 12 grounds, almost 14, 16 grounds. So holding this APC straightening, they want the River State by all means. And they lost it because they couldn't negotiate. They thought they can muzzle the man, but the man knew his onions, and he fought and he's still standing. And then when he played them, the more you look, that is play, when you're playing drought game, he played them what you call, the more you look, the less you see. He played them 21 plans ahead. That's what he gave them. And they're on assignment.
I think they probably underestimated.
I told them yesterday, hold the allocation of River State. If it's not enough, go to the court, because they always get to the court and close down River State. Tell them there's nothing like River State, that the court has declared that the River State has been cancelled. Call it now any state. You can even call it any state. Yeah, they have names. After we have some big actors, if not the Clark State, call it Nyesomwike State. You can call it Asare Dokubo State. There are names. You can call it anything. You can call it Putakwa State. But now you have cancelled Rivers and with the allocation. And then decide, because you are APC, you are the court, you everything, you decide who breathes and who doesn't breathe. Go back to your court. Get a court order. Declare River State null and void, does not exist, of no effect, and then fought with. Until that is done, Fubara is governor of River State, with or without allocation. And like the man who does not know how to make a metal gong, they say, look at the talon of a kite. So Fubara, look at what happened to President Tinubu when he was the governor of Lagos State.
That was 2000,
and learn from what he did and run your state.
Yes. Yes.
You know,
That was
when
during,
it
I think,
happened,
Obasanjo.
it was the wahala with, you know who Baba is? OBJ. Eh?
Yes.
Baba Yabo. You know who he is? And with the Jagaban, you know that kind of fight. The people who have not seen fight, they saw this one a small fight. They learned from them. Jagaban and the Tinubu fought. Some people say that even Jagaban called OBJ and then scratch a matches on the phone and said, "Did you see what happened?" He says, "Matches." He said, "Try further issues on Lagos. This is how what
it
is
will
going
catch
to
fire."
Whether it's true or
not.
But then the idea is that when big goat is eating the fodders, the small ones are watching. So, Fubara, you have learned from your president how he survived the area and then find a way of surviving. Do not allow anybody to stampede you because everybody loves life. And my father said, life is sweet to everybody. If anybody want to take your own, if you don't know what to do, swallow it in your stomach. So, my dear brother Fubara, I do not envy you because now you start the wahala and you go bring firewood full of ants. And now, the lizards are coming for a visit. When you are submitting yourself to be a godson, and then you have a godfather who you have broken out with and you have issues,
of course,
which
you
has
expect the backlash.
As the man who has befriended a broken back woman, learn how to carry her up, learn to carry her down. All this one you are bringing here for me to review, you want to hear from my mouth, say, Reverend Father, they wear
Chris,
kaftan.
Do you think this issue could degenerate further?
Well, you can't say because they know the correct fight. This is the second time I say it. Not me when Joshua said me, he want to fight me. And I noticed that Joshua mean it. And he has given me the first blow. And I'm telling Josh, no. Don't hit me here. It pains me. And he want to hit me next time. Hit me here. They know they do him for fight. Fight is rofo according to Fela. Rofo. When you get to rofo, now rofo, anywhere I can hit to pain you. So
in fact, the idea is to hit you where it pains.
The River State fight has gotten to rough level. And we have seen it. So whether it has capacity of degenerating, it's yes, 50%. Well, how it degenerates, I don't know. But it has possibility of moving beyond this.
Yes.
Our prayer is let it stop now because now somebody get this clothes where go to the shop. That when you use double barrel to harvest your plantain, now your own still a miso.
True.
So the River State people have brought, imagine when a madman enter your sitting room and you have all your decorated, expensive, and you are engaged a madman in fight in that place. By the time they finish, you can't cost. Who are you going to tell? So this fight.
All right, there's also this story that came to me just now, although it's a little bit hazy, but I'm sure, of course, you're an encyclopedia, you would know. The thing with AWO and the opposition, I think it was in the 60s or so, that now led to AWO being incarcerated, which eventually all the activities culminated into the civil war. Do you think what's happening in River State is actually mirroring what happened then, as history, tends to repeat itself?
Some people have called for what they call a state of emergency. So some people, if they really want to call dog bad name to murder it, that's where the question I asked me about degeneration. When it comes in, then somebody can now say, hi, from all indication, it has become this, there. But the River State people knew all this, and all they know. And they've come out to say, one tree cannot make a forest. And that's the good thing about it. So whichever way the thing goes, it will get to the point where it's like, hey, but you would have told me now. If you don't tell me, say, when we sit down talk, why do this?
We are brothers. We are brothers.
You know, I told you the story of the two stammerers.
Yes.
Unfortunately, you don't know. So eventually, it will be like, who whoa, my dear brother, we can. You brought me here now. The one we say, oh, okay, let's not fight again. They will
hug each other.
But the most this test of what you call when there's issue in our country, is in this era we start hearing of the show of force. The army will roll the street with Saladin, police will follow, Navy will follow, the civil defense, the police will join. If you find them going in convoy, they say they are doing showing of force. What is happening in River State now is show of force. When the show of force finish, then they now know Akakaka Bajiaka, the one which force pass force, then they will settle down to talk. But if it doesn't get this bad, it won't get better. And I tell you, there are politicians. So all this one we take here, they kill ourselves. Fubara is a politician, Wike is a politician. All the people involved in this are politicians. Even the ones in APC are politicians, NMP, NPN, PDP, politicians, APP, politicians, all of them are politicians. They will sort them out later. Because don't be surprised that even the ones that have become the local government majority, they've won. If the fight come to, if a push comes to show, you will still find out that it's in River State that it doesn't take them minutes to defect. So the whole local government will just move. Defect to another party, and you'll be confused if you sit down here.
So Chris,
trying to defend them.
I would have loved us to end on this very good note like this.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm just going to put this. This one is not going to be on a very good note because I know how passionate you can be about it. But just like in 2 minutes, just say something about it. Saturday Tribune: 33 million Nigerians will face food crisis in 2025.
Who said?
UN reports.
And so what do you want to say?
Again, other people telling, I really don't understand.
How come we don't have all these facts and data?
No, but who told you that Nigerians do not know that 2025
there will be food crisis? Like it's nothing new.
We have said it here. What have you seen? It's only, how do I say? Let me not use that word. People will feel offended. But it's only somebody who doesn't think well. We look at what is happening in Nigeria now, hoping that 2025 will be better. We have not put anything on the ground. Nothing. Every human being in Nigeria has spent all. Somebody was asked in an interview, you know how you press men talk. He says, sir, do you want to comment on the issue? The man said, I comment my reserve. He said, I comment my reserve. Nigerians have commented their reserve. So what is 2025 going to be better? There is no security for farmers to produce food. They can't go. Farmer headers crashes has gotten to the peak where that one has become secondary. There's climate issue. Climate change is becoming high-level issue in the world affairs. Nigeria is not discussing it. There is this economic hardship. It's not when people are eating even their CDM. You know how farmers do. If you want to farm next year, you bring out your CDM and the one you eat. When people are eating even their CDM, when even the civil servants don't even have a single savings, they know why should Nigeria not be? It's not a report. Let the UN keep their report. Then they not stop putting us. We know. If it sounds like this, you say UN is. Why is the UN author of doom for us? I've not seen any report recently that's saying that Nigeria will do this for positive. Nigerian young people are moving in the IT world. They have come up. I don't not seen anything like that. UN, World Bank, and all this. They need to doom. Nigeria will do this. All of them will die. Nigeria will separate. Nigeria will destabilize. And they will telling all this. We'll be reporting it. UN, your people will suffer in 2025 hunger. It's not Nigerians. It's not our portion.
Chris.
In as much as
you're always passionate when
I wanted to end it on a good note, but I know that this topic was
in as much as it's a wish. When you know there's a way when two adults were walking on the road and children were following one and said, you stole chicken. Hey, thief, you stole chicken. And the man called an adult like he said, look into this bag. Do you see a chicken? The man looked there and saw live chicken in there. Truly. And they said, I look back, I look at the children. Say, children, get away. You are accusing
Sure,
the
sure.
adult falsely. Get away. He's not the How can you say an adult stole? But on the low voice, you say, oh boy.
Come on, that chicken. Go and drop her.
So, in as much as UN should not be giving us doomed report, Nigeria.
Yeah.
Nigeria.
Sure.
Chigi, Nigeria.
Yeah.
Now, he's representing Nigeria.
Yes.
Okay, Joshua, you want to be Nigeria?
No.
Joshua, you are the Nigerian.
I get his
You are
real.
people at the Nigeria. So
But there's something.
make una
there's something I learned.
not allow waiting UN predict.
No, there's something I learned, Chris, because I'm a scientist myself. When you get all these reports and data, before you begin to run away with the numbers, you look, okay, from what source? And then when you look at the source, you'll be like, what is the interest?
Yes.
So when you look at them and you say, oh, they have this and this and this and this interest, you just take their reports.
It's still from the UN that the consultants who come and give us advice on how we do to not to fall. They will not come and give us and they go and establish all these our fertile grounds. They will only be giving us this report. What are they telling? And this.
Chris.
Let them go.
Thank you very much.
Let's not make you comment on your reserve.
I commented my reserve Nigerians. God bless Nigeria.
God bless Nigeria.
We are dispassionate. We are talking about Nigeria is going to get better. It's not,
yes.
We are not losing hope. We have to hit it hard like this for it to enter.
Well, this is the much we can take on the newspaper headlines and review. Chris, once more, thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you so much.
You're now looking more brighter and handsome.
Thanks to you.
I
have nothing to do.
I don't know.
I'm speechless. But we're going to move on. Don't forget to go to all of our social media platforms to make your comments. This interview, of course, or this conversation we just finished is going to be on YouTube. You can always watch it again. You make your comments. We want to hear what you have to say and conversations we'll be having. We'll be moving over to something else. We want you to stick around. It's going to be an amazing conversation. See you after the short break.
I'm just saying that.
The only reasonable pension you can talk about is the federal pension, because if you come down to the state pension and the local government pension, they are always owing those people. There's always backlog. But even with the federal pension, I retired from Nigerian Navy, the way they are being paid is too poor, the pension is too low, and all the contributions people made with PENCOM and defense and stuff is not really being well attributed to them in the way it's supposed to be. Most of them don't have housing. It's not only about paying people pension, you should consider their housing, post-housing, after service. Where do those people live? How do they survive? Do they have a farm? Is there any government intervention in helping them alleviate the pains of the current economic hardship? Like now, the government is even dragging to pay 100,000 for the minimum wage, and the pensioners are still receiving low 30,000. That's the basic pension benchmark. Then 30,000 cannot even buy a bag of rice. It cannot fill a tank. It cannot buy you electricity for a month. You know, it's too low. So it's regrettable. And some people that have actually managed the pensions, you know, they have, like Mena and others, they have really squandered people's money, you know, diverted the money, and there's no really money there to pay the pensioners. Because if there was money, there would have been accrued interest in their deposits. So there is nothing like that, and people are suffering. Their money has been squandered or diverted, or one way or the other, they are not being paid their pension.
They should look into it because they are the receiving end. Government employ them when they are young, and when they get old, government will not be taking care of them. Take for instance, in a western state, western part of the world, government from inception take care of them, and I believe that their money, they reduce the money from their salary. So when it's time for them to be paid, they will not be paid at the appropriate time. Most of them die young because of not taking proper care of them. You continue going for pension office from one office to another until things get not getting well at all with them. Most of them, they are suffering it. It affects them because when you look at your old person that is older than you, what is facing, you will be discouraged. The work that you have in mind doing, your enthusiasm will go down because you are seeing what other persons are facing. You will be scared. When I reach to this level, I will face the same thing. It is reduce their work.
Like in state government, they are giving them something. But parastatals, like water corporation, my husband is worked in water corporation. They don't even give them pension. They don't even give them pension. And water corporation, you can ask them.
You know, those people worked, suffered their old age. It's government that's supposed to take care of them. They don't suppose even their pension, their gratuity. They should help people. You know, some of money don't have value. Just like as they are still talking to we staff minimum wage. You know, things are very scarce. Inflation in Nigeria, so they suppose those people that depend on drugs, and those money they are paying them as a pension is not even enough to pay their bill. Some are still training their children. Some are paying house rent. So all those things, government should try to help the pensioners so that to survive more before they die. Some even on the process of going to road, do this, do that, you see some die on the hunger or fall on the road.
The way pensioners are treated is not good, because after serving the government for 35 years, you don't have nothing to show. You don't have house in your village. You don't have any investment. You can't even train your children in the tertiary institutions or give them proper medical support. Even you as a pensioner, you are not sure of your medical support from the government, people that you have worked for. If you have stroke, many people have stroke, they have hypertension, all those type of illnesses cost a lot of money, and there is no way the government is trying to help them, you know, to treat their illnesses, even to feed, even to have housing. All those things is absurd for those pensioners. And people that are in service, when they see the way they treat the people that have already retired, they will be striving, trying their best, you know, in corrupt ways, trying to make money so that they won't be suffering after retirement.
Well, quite recently, a federal high court sitting in Abuja issued a judgment restraining the Central Bank of Nigeria from disbursing funds or allocations to Rivers State government. Well, among other things, they cited misappropriation and not following due process in presenting the 2024 Rivers budget. Well, to make sense of all this new development is a political analyst by name Asim Adams. Good morning, Mr. Asim Adams. Can you hear us?
Yes, good morning to you. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Yes.
So we would like to start off with this question. When the news of the judgment from the Federal High Court, when it broke, what were your thoughts exactly?
My immediate thoughts when this news broke was that for once, the judiciary, has, upheld the sacrosanctity of the 1999 Constitution. That is, that every form of impunity, be it by a Nigerian
All right, Mr. Adams,
citizen.
I'm sorry to
Yes.
interject. Could you sit up straight and properly so that the camera can capture your face?
Yes. Can you see me now?
Yeah, thank you very much. We can see you now.
Very good. So it was a very good news for me because the impunity, the ways the executive arm of government, have treated, dismembered the Nigerian Constitution has been very saddening. So when the court sat up and said, you cannot dismember the Nigerian Constitution and go scot-free. For every act of impunity, there must be consequences. So I was very, very elated with the judgment of Justice Joyce Malik. That is my first reaction.
All right, Mr. Adams, of course, a lot of people would have opinions and side talks. And in fact, I think on X, there was some kind of conversation coming up, people saying that this is as a result of the fraud happening between Wike and, Fubara. But what's your take on this? Do you really think that this is because of Wike, or do you think this is just a genuine reason?
It is just a genuine reason. Sentiments apart. You see, for those of us in Rivers State, we play politics of sentiments and emotions. Are you aware, that when the Supreme Court was to take decisions on the allocation of local governments, to them directly, people from Rivers State, especially those who support, one of the parties in this field, said that it was the Yeso Wike camp that is orchestrating, this particular, suit before the Supreme Court through Lateef Fagbemi. But I argued, I said, no, it is not true. Lateef Fagbemi went to Supreme Court against the 36 state governors in Nigeria, not just Rivers State, but those, political, Philistine carpetbaggers in Rivers State, who are supporting Sim, said it was orchestrated and choreographed, by Yeso Wike, which is not true. Yes, it's not true.
All right, so you said that this is, let's remove sentiment, it is truly true. So yes, I want to ask now, can you explain the constitutional provisions violated by Governor Fubara's action?
Because of time, I will just encapsulate. I will not read copiously and studiously from the Constitution. But for those who are close to their Constitution, they should go to Section 90, Section 91, and Section 96. Now, I'm going to take these three sections combined, community reading, because of time. Now, Section 90 says there should be a House of Assembly of every state in Nigeria. Then you go to Section 99, it says that a House of Assembly of a state should not be less than 24 members. House of Assembly of a state should not be less than 24 members and not more than 40 members. So which means each state or the federation, has the right, to apportion 24 members to the state, or 36 or 38, but no more than 40. In River State, we have 32. And it is based on the representation in the House of Representatives. That is how the allocation came about, an allotment of seats in your House of Assembly. There are states that do have 24 as a minimum. There are states that have 26, depending on how many members they have in the House of Reps, times 3 or times 4. So now, if you go further in these areas I've said, the House of Assembly of a state, 3 members can sit. They can sit down and discuss and drink tea and eat jollof rice and, go back, to their various houses and resume tomorrow and eat jollof rice, drink tea, etc., as the case may be. But when it comes to a particular debate or area that 2/3 of majority of the House of Assembly must, give their consent, they cannot sit down because they are not to 2/3. Now, when it comes to forming a quorum, what the Constitution say, and I challenge anybody listening to me, what the Constitution say is that 1/3 of members of the House of Assembly. That is what the Constitution says. And it goes further to explain, to say that wherever there's a sitting, and a member finds out that members present for that day's session are not up to 1/3 of members in the House, what will happen is that the House will adjourn. They keep adjourning until they attain, 1/3 quorum. Because without a quorum 1/3, you cannot sit. The Legislative House cannot sit. That is why you find that even this particular present, Jumbo-led assembly, when the 27 members of the House of the PDP defected allegedly to APC in December of last year, the Jumbo-led or Ehie-led House of Assembly did not sit and deliberate on issues until January, February of the following year. They kept shifting and adjourning to see whether they can achieve 1/3 as quorum, but they couldn't do that. So when 3 people offer for seats to do a business that requires 2/3 of the House, it is an aberration, it's an illegality, no matter how we look at it. So it is even logically wrong, very puerile and factical, for you to see a governor presenting a budget, a hallowed budget, of 800 million before 3 people in a house. It looks like a comedy when I watched it the last time. So these are the things that happen. So you must have to follow the law. The law is very clear. Finally, on it is not about whether those people defected or not. 27 members is not the issue of defection, whether they defected or not. It's none of my business here. But the business of the court is that the 3 or 4 of you cannot sit and do a business that requires 2/3 majority to give the governor a go-ahead to begin to spend on that budget. That is where the question is.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sim. Your point is duly noted. However, given the peculiarity of the River State political landscape, the 20-something House of Assembly members who defected were meant to understand that their case to decide the legality or illegality of the evacuation is still in court and has not been concluded. Now, would you say that the decision of the High Court in staying, the allocation of funds to River State is a little bit hasty? Shouldn't they, some people think, shouldn't they have waited for the judgment concerning the legality of the camping of the 20-something House of Assembly members in River State? What's your take on this?
They don't need to wait. That is where a lot of them are getting it wrong. There is no party, there's a court judgment, the Court of Appeal. The Federal High Court, first of all, for Motosho affirmed and said that they have the imprimatur authority to sit. The Court of Appeal affirmed that decision of the Federal High Court, that the 27 lawmakers have the premature authority to sit. But wherever they are sitting now is where the issue is. But they have the right. If premature authority means the right to sit. And if they have the right to sit, and no court has declared and said they cannot sit anywhere, or any court has declared them illegal or a higher court, then there is no law that is banning them from sitting as they are sitting anywhere they want to sit right now. The position of the law right now is that those 27 members are still members of the House of Assembly until an appellate court says otherwise. So that is what is happening right now. So the court, Omotosho said, present the budget to the 27 members because they are the legitimate House of Assembly members. The Court of Appeal affirmed that particular decision. Said, go and represent the budget to them. It is only when the Supreme Court now decide, because that is the next stage the matter will go to. If the Supreme Court now decide, say no, 27 of you have defected, it then means that it now becomes the law, and nobody can begin to ask 27 members to sit. Let me, very hastily say here, and maybe conclusively say here, Section 287, sub 3, which affects the Federal High Court, says that any decision of a court of competent jurisdiction in Nigeria is bound to be executed by all authorities and persons in Nigeria. So all the decisions taken by the Federal High Court of Appeal and recently the Federal High Court in Abuja, by Justice Joy Malik, they become valid judgments until they are set aside. By virtue of Section 287, sub 3, it's a current judgment that has currency. It has life current, like what we have in NEPA current cable. If you touch it, anyhow, it will shock you, as the case may be. So these are things we must have to do. Nigeria is a democracy run under our constitution. We cannot go outside of it and begin to allow sentiments to sway us in whatever form we are doing. So that is just my take this morning.
All right, great. Mr. Asim, I have a two-edged kind of question, two-pronged question rather. First, I would like you to tell us what would Governor Fubara had done differently. Yes, you have pointed out certain breaches in the Constitution, but I want you to just in plain words tell us what Governor Fubara would have done differently. And then secondly, if I'll take your mind back to the early 2000s, there was this sort of tension between the Lagos state government and the federal government led by President Obasanjo at the time, where funds were withheld. Could you draw a little bit of contrast between what's happening now and what happened then? So is it a two-pronged question? What would Governor Fubara have done differently, and draw a kind of contrast between what happened between the Lagos state government and the federal government, and what's happening between River state government now and the federal government?
First of all, I have to answer the second question, because a lot of lawyers, even including senior lawyers who I respect so much in Nigeria today, have been, drawing allusions and conclusions, trying to simulate and choreograph that the River State imbroglio is the same with that of Lagos in terms of allocations we had. That is fallacious and factical, very factical, conclusion. It's a hasty generalization and conclusion by those lawyers. Let me give you the differences. We were taught at our elementary stage in our law school that no two cases are the same, that all the two cases are what we call pari material. They are pari material, the same materials. No, it's not so. Let me start first of all. Are you aware that the judgment that was given by the Supreme Court in 2004, of which Tinubu, the president today, was governor of Lagos State, is quite different from what we have today? The first one is this. Are you aware that it was the president of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo, that he sat down on his own and wrote a letter to Federal Minister of Finance. And as at that time, I think one named Nadi Usman was the Minister of Finance. Obasanjo wrote a letter in his own handwriting to the Federal Ministry asking them to direct CBN not to release the allocation of Lagos State government to them until they comply with the Constitution of Nigeria. Nana Usman, the then Minister of Finance, based on that particular directive, asked the central bank not to release allocations to Lagos State until they comply. You know what happened? The AG of Lagos State, I've forgotten the name of the young man then, the AG of Lagos State approached the Supreme Court and said that a sitting president, a member of the executive arm of government, cannot, arbitrarily and brazenly, request without a court order, request the Federal Minister of Finance not to release allocations meant for a state. And they went to court. I remember the late F.R. Williams was on the side of federal government. And you had some other titans who were on the side of Lagos State, etc., as the case may be. The Supreme Court came and said the president does not have that premature authority to do what? To direct Federal Minister of Finance, to direct CBN not to release allocation to a state. That is the difference. But in this particular case, it was a court of competent jurisdiction. It was not Wike that wrote to CBN. It was not even, the president that wrote to Minister of Finance or CBN to stop giving allocation to River State. It was a court order. And not just a court judgment, it was a court, judgment on the merits. On the merit mean that both parties, for State Fubara and River State, all brought their pleadings before the court. And the court decided on the pleadings of the two parties and now arrived at this decision. So nobody can question that. So based on the currency of Section 287 that I mentioned before, that particular judgment, whether rightly or wrongly, becomes the law. And that is why we have the appellate jurisdiction of courts. Now, if the Federal High Court, assuming without conceding that the Federal High Court was wrong, is it by going on social media engineering to begin to incite people against the judiciary? No. What they ought to have done, which rightly they have done, is to rush to that particular court to do what they call stay of execution. A stay of execution can be, derived at the Federal High Court that gave the order, or if it refuses, you run to the Court of Appeal to get a stay of execution. So any which way you have that right to get a stay to arrest this particular judgment that was given, but they have not done that. So these are two parallel, issues, and I'm ready to debate with the highest echelon of those who are supporting Sin Fubara in this particular, whatever we are doing today, on this particular mantra. Then two, to your first question, because of time, what Sin Fubara would have done was this. The man has been acting like a chameleon to his supporters. Let me use the word his supporters, even though they are Philistine, carpetbaggers, opportunists, who are, edging him on for self-destruct politically. Now, what he would have done, you submitted yourself. You did not inform your supporters or those close to you. You submitted yourself to a presidential panel that was set up surreptitiously, secretly, without us even knowing. We discovered you went to Abuja to meet President Tinubu. Ordily went with you, and some other people went with you to go and resolve this particular matter. As at the time Saint Fubara was leaving for Abuja, he did not even go with Edison here. He's then Speaker of the House of Assembly. He did not even go with him. He did not even go with Oko Jumbo that is talking about it. But he went to Abuja alone to go and cut a deal without informing his loyalists I've named or I mentioned before now. He got there, a 10-point or 8-point agenda was narrated. You signed it. You confirmed that you signed the agenda, and nobody put you under duress for you to sign it. When you got back to Port Harcourt, the Philistine carpetbaggers, those who have access to grind with Yeso Wike, now said, no, you cannot, you have to undo what you have signed. You now they begin to plead the legal principle of non-ex fatum, not my deed. Then you now getting that particular resolution between you and the president. You understand? So,
Mr. Adams. Yes. Sorry, I have to cut you short now because of time. But before I let you go, finally, I mean, this is a battle between the federal government and Fubara. But then again, the people are going to be impacted. In just 2 minutes, how do you think this will affect the state's ability to provide essential services? Just 2 minutes, please.
They know how they go about it. Some of the governors in Nigeria go to banks and borrow money from them, from the back door without following constitution. River State will run. Forget the sentiments they are talking about. If the governor wants to feed his family with 100,000 cows today, he needs money. He will get the money to do that. Forget about these sentiments they are doing. The state will keep running. They will go to their banks, and the banks will give them loans or whatever through the back door because they know that this matter will be settled as case may be. But before I go, sir, those who are saying that the court does not have the right to say they should withhold allocation, the Supreme Court, quite in June of this year, the Supreme Court gave a judgment that any particular state that does not allow direct allocation of local government funds, to them, that the allocation will be seized. Was not a court that gave the order. Why were they not against it? Why are they against this particular order given by this court?
Mr. Adams.
This is the question we should ask. Yes.
How will the state be able to provide essential service for the citizens?
They are providing it. They have banks that gives them. I don't want to call the name of the banks. Every state government. I gave you for an example now. If the governor saying Pubara needs 100 billion naira now, banks will give to him through the back door. All governors in Nigeria have been doing that with their banks. They have relationship with their bank. The state will move on, pending when they get the money. They are not saying it should be forever. Now the appellate court will, decide on this very soon, and the matter will be resolved. So the state will keep running. You cannot tell me that because there's no allocation does not mean that government has Port Harcourt will not operate. They will keep feeding. They'll keep writing their cards. So how are they going to do that? They should pay workers their salary. And bury. Let them go and borrow money from banks. They have been doing it. So it's not something of sentiment.
Adams. Yes, this is the much we'll be able to take from you. Thank you very much for coming on the show this morning.
Joining us in the show.
Thank you. God bless you.
Now we'll have another interesting conversation. If you've enjoyed this, then trust me, what is coming next is going to be an amazing conversation. We want you to stick around. Don't forget to go to all of our social media platforms. We want to hear your comment. See you after this.
Well, if you're still here with us, thank you for still being part of this program. This is still a new day. Don't forget to go over to our social media platforms to like, comment, and share. Well, on an interesting note, we have someone here in the studio. His name is Emeka Kazo. He's also Ezenia Ugonabo. Yesterday, he had an interesting lecture where he spoke about collective responsibility for the research and retelling of Igbo histories. And if you have been with us, you've probably heard me say that one of my personal pains is seeing that history has been taken out of schools, and any agenda to bring history back in schools and in our homes will be supporting that. So he's going to be talking to us about Igbo nation in search of cohesion in leadership. And someone said everything rises and falls on leadership. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So tell us, yesterday you had a lecture at Center for Memories. I, for one, was supposed to be there, but for some reasons. Tell us, how did it go?
The feedback I got was that it went down well. It provided food for thought, because obviously I can't say
you can't evaluate it by yourself.
I can't evaluate it on my own. Just the feedback I got was that people appreciated the points made. A 30-minute lecture will never give you the full vista to espouse on all the points, but at least it was the start of a conversation.
Absolutely.
And I'm grateful for the opportunity to probably expand on some of the things that I had started out talking about yesterday.
Okay, absolutely. Now let's talk about the Igbo nation and leadership.
Yes.
From a very historic point of view. Some people will say they don't make the Igbos like they used to, given the antecedents of our founding fathers. Where exactly did we start getting it wrong as a people, not just as a tribe, but also as a nation? When, at what point, what was the paradigm shift that, got us to where we are, which is why we have this huge gap that we're trying to fill? Okay.
That's a very broad question, but I'll attempt to answer it as briefly as possible. If we look through the historical epochs, right, at the time that the Igbo as a monolithic group began to formally coalesce, because there was never really it wasn't like we were never an empire, like you talk about the Benin Empire where there was a central authority. That was never the case in Igbo land. Igbos were, the Igbo nation, as it were, for want of a better description, consisted of hundreds of separate communities developing on their own or indeed in interrelationships with each other, but then there were two major cultures, right? Two major cultures that, should I say, provided governance across the broad swathe three major cultures, in fact, that provided governance across the broad swathe of the Igbo nation, as it were. One being the Nri culture. I'm not going to go into too much detail. The Nri culture consisted
but we know
of
they say
the titles.
Yes.
Yeah, the Nzenozo titles were Nri motifs. Even the market days came from the Nri culture. That's the four Igbo market days. And then the other being the Aro culture.
Aro culture.
Yes. And the Aro culture is a bit younger than the Nri culture, but it had a great deal of influence in central Igbo land and also closer to the Cross River Basin, which is where the Aro Chukwu
migrated from.
Was actually where it was formed. And it was an amalgamation of several groups. There was the dominant Igbo culture as well as Ibibio, Ejegam cultures, which are more, you can find more in the Akwa Ibom and Cross River states. But the Aro culture had a very strong influence on other parts of Central Igbo land. Now, the third influence would be that of the Western Igbo cultures, because the kingships of the present-day Delta state, Igbo-speaking Delta state communities such as Asaba, Onitsha, and so on and so forth, where they had monarchies, due to the influence of the Ezechime influence. So you find that there were three monolithic cultural influences. Now, did they interact? Obviously, they did. There was a very complex system of interaction where it's almost like, when you lend somebody your shoe or you lend somebody your shirt, and they say, look, when you finish, pass it on to the next person. There was almost like, these cultures were being passed on a very functional basis because people consider, okay, look, does this culture work for us? Does it enhance our lives? Adopt it. And it was adopted in a very complex, intelligent way. Now, if you look at the Nri culture, for one, the Nri were more of a theocracy. But then beyond just being a theocracy, the Inri also had a lot of influence over agriculture. It was said that the Inri priests would travel round. There were itinerant priests who would travel round, you know, and sanctifying when the planting season could start. You know, people thought it was magic or juju or whatever. But you see, the reality is that what the Inri culture was simply practicing was knowledge, scientific knowledge. They could calculate planting cycles. You know, they had the ability. It was simple mathematics.
And most of these guys were actually stargazers.
Isaac, who knew with the times and season.
No, it's actually they stargaze and then they watch the season and then they deduce.
Absolutely.
So it's scientific.
It is pure science. And, you know, and it was based on pure science and also humane living, because, you know, some of the what we don't. I mean, like when people talk about the Osu caste system, the Osu was within the hegemonic system of knowledge, and it wasn't necessarily a negative thing. Although over time, the outcast motif, the outcast description became quite bold. At the time, it was said that when somebody had committed Nswani, or like had committed a crime against the land, be it a very, very serious crime, rather because we never believed in the taking of human life. Inri culture abhorred taking of human life. So you would have, there would be a cut on your ear, and when the blood drips to the ground and you are placed outside, that is almost like ostracization. And it's unfortunately it transmitted, you know, kind of like through your genealogy. You know what I mean? So that was one of the Inri practice, because what really the whole point of Inri culture was humane living. The dwarfs who came within Inri were taken in and kept safe.
Did you say dwarfs?
Yes, you know, like persons of physically challenged, persons of a low height. It's a long description, but they were called dwarfs. Anyway, so they were taken into the palace of the Ezenri and given protection. And in fact, he bestowed upon them what he called mystical powers. You know, in fact, at the time, it was during the reign of Ezenri Tabansi, Rijofo Tabansi Udene. It was said that there was actually one of the female a dwarf who was his advisor, spiritual advisor, and they were said to have spiritual powers. Now, what at least one scholar has said is that this was purely more a case of ascribing mystical powers to them to provide them with protection from being brutalized by a wider society. So Inri was about humane living. Now, Aro was more about mercantilism.
What does that mean in plain English?
Aro, let me say it, the Aro were the perfect capitalists.
Oh.
They were the perfect capitalists. You see, the thing, you get a lot of these stereotypes about Ndibo. Oh, Ndibo like Lego. The reality is that that's not quite correct. You see, and that's one of the reasons, one of the things I'm going to deal with shortly afterwards, is that the Aro people were, you know, they were natural entrepreneurs. It wasn't always nice, because let's be honest, the Aro's place in the slave trade is well known, and it's not something that anybody should, you know. But in fact, it got to a point that the Aro and Inri once had the only time Inri actually engaged in warfare, because warfare was against the philosophy, precisely the philosophy of the Inri people. The only time they engaged in warfare was was when the Inri formed a confederal army to fight against the Aro. Now, you consider the Aro did not have an army. Aros were not known to be warriors.
But they were also known to be mercenaries.
No. What the Aro did was they hired mercenaries to fight for them.
Oh, yeah.
Now, what they would hire the Abam and Eda, who by their nature were natural warriors. You know, they loved fighting. And you see, people often say, oh, that they were headhunters. No. You see, the thing is that headhunting at the time, so about 300-400 years ago, was a mark of manhood. So they needed to go through manhood rights. Now, so what Aro did will provide them with wars where they can go and fight and gain heads. So the Aro weren't necessarily doing it just for the money. It was more for the opportunity to fight, you know, to be engaged in warfare. So this is and then of course the monarchies of the Umezechime and Oguta, because Oguta also had a monarchy, right? So where am I going with all this? This is the first phase of when we actually coalesced into a larger, we've never been a monolithic group, but we've been bound by at least two things. One, language. The binding factor was language, and also the market days, right? And the agricultural cycles. You know, we were bound by these. And that really is what two of the early motifs of the Igbo nation, as it were.
Yeah.
Now, the second phase was the colonial era, because obviously, as we know, from the late 19th century, the colonial incursion started. You know, the so-called Royal Niger Company treaties, which were signed by several Igbo communities who believed they were signing trading partnerships. They didn't know they were signing away their their lives. And then and obviously the Niger Coast, well, the Oil Rivers and Niger Coast Protectorate treaties, which were converted into the protectorates, or basically converted into protectorates of southern and northern, well, the rest of Nigeria. For speaking generally about the rest of Nigeria, the protectorates of southern and northern Nigeria, which the Igbo communities were part of the southern protectorate.
Yes, protectorate.
Now, it is instructive that up until the protectorates were founded in 1900.
Okay.
But then there were wars of resistance being fought in Igbo land up until 1919. What does that tell you? That, okay, you say that we're now part of the Queen's country. When did we when did we agree to that? So people naturally fought. I mean, Obosi, my community, had been at warfare, a resistance to the Royal Niger Company in the late 19th century, which my great-grandfather, Hikazu Babuli, was an active warrior, you know, and then even up until 1901, 1902, because the Arrow invasion was 1902, up until 1903, when the Arrow eventually were conquered. They were still incursions led by Major Trenchard, you know, who Trenchard Hall Ibadan, you might have heard of. Yes, Major Trenchard, and who, in fact, the Ndiobose had a nickname for him. We called him Wangwele, because he was a very slim, very slim man, but you know, well, he was doing the work of his masters. You know, Major Morehouse. Morehouse Road in ENUGU.
Yes,
was
yes,
one of
yes,
indeed, Montanaro and so on and so forth. They were at the forefront of the decimation of resistance.
All right, let me ask this question. Yes. Sorry, if I caught your train of thoughts. Now, you have mentioned a lot of things about Igbos and how they came together, you know, bound by their language and the four market days. And I'm sure, of course, probably a judiciary system that was working for them and so many other things that we may not have mentioned. At what point did we get it wrong? Was it because of the colonial incursion, invasion? Was that the paradigm shift that, you know, got everybody running, you know, helter-skelter, and now we need to form an agency or a platform to bring about cohesion? Okay,
because thank you for steering me back to the question. Now, the second phase, which was actually saw the most powerful cohesion of the Igbo nations, because there were the various nations, was in the colonial era. You know, when the Ekumeku resistance in the Western Igbo land finally ebbed at the end of the First World War in 1918, you know, and then the Igbo land was pacified, as they say. You know, eventually we began to accede to the new
culture,
power, to the new power base, because the colonials were now the new power structure. You know, the new power brokers. So we began to accede. Initially, there was resistance, but slowly, as the Anglican, as the missions...
We're talking religion now.
Well, the religion...
Governance, religion.
There's very little distinction, because...
Two sides of the same coin.
There were two sides of the same coin. The fact is that the missions were in partnership with the governmental authorities, even though they had distinct remits and sometimes distinct objectives. But they were very much part of the same infrastructure. The missions relied on the colonial authorities, colonial government, for their legitimacy and their protection. So naturally, they were partners. In any case, they were the same color. You know. Now, when we saw that we had now been conquered, what did we do? We looked at the power shift. They had introduced warrant chief systems. So and these warrant chiefs suddenly had power that was backed by Maxim guns. So what did we do? We said, okay, let's adjust. Community started adjusting. There was some resistance, like at the Aba Women's War. But then we started going to school. Whereas the West, people like in the Western Nigeria, places like Lagos and Ibadan, which had earlier contact with the colonials and earlier alliances with the colonials, we had a head start in terms of Western education. But then we began to catch up. We began to catch the first Igbo graduates were from the late 19th century. That's when they went to Forobe College, Isaac Mba, and so on and so forth. Ifemara, they graduated in the late 19th century. But by the 1920s, when the conquest was now very well established, we started going to school. You understand? We said our first graduate, the first lawyer was in 1935, the first doctor was in 1932, Simon Ong, Salui Mbanefo was in 1935, and various other, the first Igbo engineer, Isaac Iweka from Imperial College. So we started building a new elite because we said, okay, we change you go. Wasn't kind of agafia. So we now change, and then what is quite interesting is this elite, Igbo elite, soon, even though there were still fragmentations, but there was now common cause. So we now started migrating because as the colonials were setting up their infrastructure, the biggest employer of labor in what was Nigeria from 1914 was the railways. A lot of Igbos were joined the railways, and we transited from a subsistence economy to a wage or salary economy. You understand?
Yes.
So by this time, this is where the power is. People started shifting, and they were traveling all over the place. And the thing is, it's natural when you travel to Kafanchan or you go to Kano, where as an employee of the railways, you settle down in an area, you want to hang out with people who are like you.
Like-minded people.
Your own people. That's your language.
So
there were these communities, these diasporan communities of Ndibo forming at this time. And you could be from Hamufu, you could be from ENUGU Ezike, you could be from Olo or Obosi, but
for the fact that you are Igbo,
yes. As what's this line from Flavor's song, Ijele, he says, Eba bro, we're dying. You know what I mean? Let's stick together, and we began to stick together. And what happened is that by 1949, this movement, when people like Zik founded his newspaper and actively began to, any Igbo man that comes back after having studied, Zik will run there and publish his picture, to try and instill a sense of pride that look at our son, he's back. And then by 1949, this cluster, the community was blossoming. When Zik came back himself in 1934, my grandfather, Eugene Ikazo, was one of those who read the welcome speech alongside the Igbo community, because an illustrious Igbo son has come back. Wow. It's not an illustrious Obusi son or illustrious Owerri son. An illustrious Igbo son had come back. So there's that feeling of, because there was a large diaspora. Hey, when we go home, we can quarrel about who owns this land. Obusi and Onitsha will quarrel about who owns Awada, who doesn't own Awada. But when we're in Lagos or when we're in Kano, we're one. So that actually engendered that cohesion. And now let me fast forward. By the time the Igbo Union was founded in 1949, right? The Igbo Union was the overarching cultural body.
Was it political? It was strictly social.
It was socio-political and even economic, because a lot of our interest, a lot of the thinking towards the broad economic projects were ignited, or at least ideated on the platform. It was a progressive platform of Ndibo, and
Sorry, was that what transformed into Ohaneze Ndibo? Was that
Ohaneze was Ohaneze, you call it Ohaneze, an offspring, in fact, a great-grandchild of the Igbo Union, because there was also Mpoku Igbo, there was also Aki Kenga, and so on and so forth. But Ohaneze became survived the storms, and that also became the last man standing.
Yes.
But let me now talk about the zenith of Igbo cohesion.
Good.
It would have been after the debacle of the Eastern Region crisis of 1953, when Dr. Eyoita was rather unfortunately lost his position as premier to Zik, who had lost his bid to win the center and came back and now took over the premiership. It caused a lot of disaffection with our brothers from the EBBO and Cross River Brothers. But then, that aside, the work of consolidating the Eastern region started. Now, the Eastern region didn't just consist of Igbo land. Obviously, as we know, the Cross River people, the Rivers people were part of the Eastern region. But then there was that cohesion. We were within the same geographical area. Now the work started. An incredible amount of developmental work took place. Let's not forget it was the poorest of the three regions at the time.
The Igbo region?
Yes, the Eastern region was the poorest. It was the poorest of the. Let's not.
How so?
It was. Look, you see, there's this.
This was before the Civil War.
Yes, you see, there's this myth that everybody else depended on, we were feeding the rest of the nation. That's not strictly correct. Yes, the northern region at the time of amalgamation was very, very poor. But let's not forget that amalgamation, there was Northern and Southern Protectorate, so there wasn't a subdivision into the East, so for us to know what the East actual output was. But after this, by the end of the Second World War, the North had tin, the North had groundnuts, the North had cotton, which was now the pyramids.
Exported.
Yeah, and then we had palm produce.
Oil, palm oil.
Palm produce. We had palm produce, but so did the West. The West had cocoa, the West had palm produce, so, and the West was far ahead in
education,
in exports. So we were having to catch up. It's not even hidden, which is why we had leaders then. Zik, for all the bad press he gets, some he may deserve, but the reality is that Zik and a group of Igbo, should I say Eastern leaders of thought, business leaders in particular, felt, look, you know what, let's put our heads down and build this region. That's why I think Igbos should have a debt of gratitude to Sir Louis Ojukwu.
Okay.
No, Sir Louis Ojukwu,
okay.
Because they literally traveled around the world looking for investment opportunities into Igbo land. So that by the time Zik now moved to the center in 1959, after the December 1959 elections, federal elections, when it was clear that there was going to be a coalition between, well, it was clear that he was going to have to move to the center. And then Dr. Michael Opara now took his place as premier. That was when, like, a whirlwind of activity took place. 1959 to 1966 was the zenith. You know, and sorry, just to point out, by 1964, a Michigan State University report, which was first published by Professor Anya Okanya, described the Eastern region as the fastest growing economy in the whole world. And the thing is, there was energy. You know, there was energy. We were energized. We were united as a people. There was a sense of pride because there was what?
Cohesion.
Well,
Leadership.
thank you very, very much.
Absolutely.
Honestly, we wish we had more time. We would have continued
We
this
barely scratched the
conversation. I
surface.
know. I have my own question. I've not even asked the questions I want to ask.
They're telling us that our time is actually
It's fine. So thank you very much for coming into the studio.
It's a pleasure. Sorry, I talk too much.
No, we enjoy your
it,
talks.
actually. I think I've learned more from you than I've learned in all my time in secondary school, primary school, and all of that.
Okay, so fun fact, we're trying to get him an Igbo wife, so he's an interested party.
I'm being to go to my brother.
No, not yet. After this, we'll go.
Let them not kidnap
No, not yet, sir, not yet.
So we'll go for entertainment news. We'll see you after this.
Okay.
All right, let them on mic you first.
Oh, I hope was that bit being recorded?
A very good morning to you and welcome to a new day here on Signature Television. My name is Godwin Sunday. This morning we'll be talking about youth involvement in governance. And joining me in this conversation is Prince Owo Great, the Senior Legislative Aide to the Senate President. And we'll be talking about youth involvement in government. You're welcome to New Day on Signature Television, Prince.
Thank you very much, Godwin. Good day and good morning, Nigerians.
Thank you. All right, so let's even get into the conversation. First, you are a youth and a young person, and of course, you've been in the corridor of politics for a while. How's the journey been so far?
Thank you very much once again. I would say that the journey has been very worthwhile. The experience has been worthwhile, given the different intricacies of politics, governance in general. And for me, it's been very worthwhile because it's a learning experience for me. But as the day goes by, as the involvement comes in, you get to see the different dynamics instead of, staying from outside, the curveball to take a deciding factor of what is happening. It's better for you to get your feet wet in the waters for you to know how murky the water is. And I think for me, getting involved in these processes has really been, worthwhile and very experiencing for me.
All right, interesting. Let's even talk about youth involvement in general in politics. A lot of youth tend to shy away from political activities, especially in Nigeria. I'm surprised that you have gotten yourself involved and decided to put your legs in the deep waters. But why is this so? Why is the narrative of youth involvement in politics, especially the democratic era, why is this so?
Well, I still, for me, I feel like it's just perception. I feel like youth involvement in governance and politics, as long as Nigeria is concerned, has always been the bedrock, of youth involvement in governance. The youth are the one who seek for democracy in this country, irrespective of, how we have journeyed so far, but we know that those who came out in their voices and demanded for the democracy of this country were youth. They were young, full women and men who decided that it was time for us to get together and, deciding factor on the way we move as a nation. So yes, for me, I feel youth have always been involved in governance and in democracy. There's just this perception about, for example, they would say, don't run for office. How will I put it? This perception and this knowledge that, oh, even if you vote, your vote will not count. But that's not the truth, because there's a process on which how things are done. And it's only fair for you to be able to be a part of these, consecutively and consistently as they go, to be able to shape how we get involved as youth in governance. So for me, if you ask me, I feel that youth have always been involved in governance. There's just this smokescreen and belief that youth should not be involved in governance, or youth feel more laid back and relaxed and having this knowledge or this perception that the old guys in the business or the old guy in governance and politics are the one running things, if I would use that youthful word. And I feel like every day there are more conscious youth out there who know that they have to be a part of the process, to be a deciding factor.
Interesting so far. Well, I was looking out for the fact that most youth are saying right now that the cost of joining the political space right now is quite expensive. So that's why most of them shy. Can this also be a factor why most youth are not involved in governance?
It is a big factor. We're not going to shy away from it. Definitely, finance is a very big factor into the role of governance, into the role of politics. And we cannot shy away from that fact that most youths who have brightest of ideas are being shut out of the finances to be able to go through political processes that take them into power. And if you ask me, even if we know that there are financial constraints for youths who have bright ideas for them to be able to go and give their quota in governance, that shouldn't be a deciding factor for youth to shy away from governance. Why I say so is because, as much as the belief that youth need to be involved, I see it just like in this administration. You can see that there has been a vast number of involvement in youth, women, and even the disabled getting involved in governance. You can see in the Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration, the tax reforms, executives and the team that have been formed, we have a very young, youthful, vibrant participant in that team, which just tells you that this administration are very keen to see how they can bridge that gap. Where we now see it, the fact that finances is not too much of a problem. Political parties also must come into the picture. They must also come into the conversation to be able to see that there's a framework that enables you to be able to get involved, in as much as they know that there's a cap towards the finances that will be involved, to at least assist youths to actualizing their dream and giving their quota back into governance.
All right, so let's talk about this issue of region-based youth participation in government. People believe that when we say youth don't participate or get involved in government, it is region-based. For example, in the north, large number of youths get involved. Teenagers even get involved in politics. In the south, a large number of youth shy away from politics. Can we now say that orientation politically within Nigeria has affected youth involvement in politics, and politics have been tied to region? Or what do we make of such a scenario?
That scenario, when we speak about region, I think this is the very fabric that has been embedded into the Nigerian system from the get-go. But nevertheless, I am a preacher of a united Nigeria, one front Nigeria, given the fact that I schooled in the north, coming from the south. I really grew up in the southwest, from the south, but schooled in the north. So I call myself a Nigerian because I have that diverse effect from every corner. So if we are speaking about regional politics, looking at the number of involvement from the north and compared to the south, I would say there's a bridge there that needs to be covered. Looking at our political class, our leaders, our traditional rulers, coming from the south, to give room and trust to more youth to get involved in making sure that they give their quota in. That's why, for me, I believe that there should be leadership and mentorship processes. We've seen in past where we have, our political leaders and representatives take upon, this faction, this structure to be able to aid youths in the South. We can see it from even my principal, Senator Goswin Lobodopabi, the Senate President, has been able to give this model effect to be able to see how it trickles down to raising the youth from the South to get very involved in politics. And if we look at it, we have very bright minds from the South who have relatively put themselves up front. We even have one of the presidential setup, which is Gift Jumbo, who is one of the essays to the Special Senior Assistants to Engagement. I think they got all the engagement from the youth angle in the South. She's doing beautifully well. So I think these are steps that will, in order to make sure that we gear in the Southerners, the South, in the South to get more involved in politics. We have them more involved, very vibrant minds. In the North, yes, there is the structure in the North that I foresee as to the fact that succession in continuity is always in place. And for the South, we must seek to model that. That is what I see in Lagos, where we've had very youthful former President Muhammad Buhari, I think 2018-19, that has seen to, House of Assembly members, rep members, down to the Speaker of Assemblies in their 30s. If we are talking about 150 million youthful young Nigerians making a big quarter in our numbers from the age of 35 downwards, it tells you that it is a big time to play out to make sure that both the South and the North come together to see how they put up relevance in the youth structure of governance, and there's continuity in governance for us to be able to take this country forward as youths.
Amazing conversation so far. Let's drive this conversation back to the grassroots, which has been the front line for the most important.
The most important.
But then again, the grassroots youth involvement in politics, Nigerian politics right now, has been tied to a lot of discrepancies. We wouldn't want to shy away from the fact that most people from the grassroots would rather look for white-collar jobs or aspire to get a white-collar job than aspire to be a politician, especially at the grassroots. And that is supposed to be the breeding ground for youth to get involved in politics. Now, the question is, if the youth are not getting involved in politics at the grassroots, everybody's eyeing the office of the governor, the office of the president. And because they're not too young to not run bill, to a large extent, is not targeting at the local government. Mm-hmm. It's targeting the governorship position and that of the president. Is there hope for Nigeria, especially at the grassroots level?
There is indeed hope, and the renewed hope agenda that we preach definitely tilts us towards this direction. You can see it from the local government financial autonomy bill, which has just been signed, from by the National Assembly, sent from the executives. This just tells you that the system understands that politics is local, meaning that it all starts from the grassroots. Godwin, let me share with you that just during this local government election, I went back home to my community to campaign the length and breadth of our local government, wards and units to be able to, talk with the people. This is a continuous effort, by the way. It's not just something that we do during the election, but continuously to be able to interact, and have engagement with the people and say, let us understand what is happening back at home, so that representatives like us that you send on duty will be able to make sure that the dividends of democracy comes back down. It is imperative that the local government are very keyed into the decision making of governance, and in politics in general. I have this, I think, I don't know if I'll call it a principle or a school of thought, that the society starts from the family. And if we can get it right from the family sector, it will trickle down to our smallest community for it to enable us to even take us down to the presidency or a governor. Because a president or governor comes from a family. And if the right values and morals are being taught in the family, in respect to governance and politics, it will trickle down to the leaders that we, in order put in place to lead us. It is important, and I'm happy that in the administration of the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu Renew Hope agenda, led, through also with the president of the legislative, with the Senate President, Senator Godswill Akpabio, as well as what the Speaker is doing in the House of Rep, you can see that they have the projection for them to making sure that in the grassroots, things are done properly and we get engaged people from the grassroots to be able to represent the people and bring down the dividends of democracy down to the grassroots. Everybody should be a part and parcel of what we are doing. It's imperative. It's very important. We're going all around, and I could see the vibrant numbers of youth in the community from ward to ward, agitating for who they know or who they feel was going to be able to get the job done for them. And that's the beauty of democracy. You have various parties, to get involved to be able to lead you to that direction. That is why it's important for youth in the community, as down as the grassroots, coming from the units to the wards, down to the local government, down to the states, while we are looking up to the federal, to be able to get involved. And how can you do this? You can do this by being part of a political party. If you are not part of a political party, you cannot even say that this is the candidate I want to go and represent me in my party, that can project his ideologies of the party and his personality to the people and the community to trickle down democracy. Now, this is just the best option. You get involved in a political party enough for you to have a deciding factor with the ideologies of the person and the party to now elect that person into power or into governance. And I'm grateful because we see that youth are getting involved, as councillors, as local government chairmen. I'm grateful that for states like mine as well as states, all over the federation are getting women involved also in the quarter. We are seeing whereby the disabled also are in the picture, even as youths, for them to have a voice. We need to see that in the community, the people who are leading the community and speaking of the community are those of youthful age and youthful. I really do not see why a certain age bracket should be vying for the chairman of a local government or a councillor. Because age is an advantage, it's an experience. It comes into the picture because then we are able to guide us, the young ones, into the mantle of leadership properly with the right morals and values. Now, if that is the case, then bring the room on for mentorship and leadership, where you put young leaders in position for them to thrive within the ideologies that you have given to them. As a mentor, it's just the goal. So for me, it's imperative that the youth get involved in the grassroots to be able to dialogue with the market women, the keke and bike riders who are feeling the pinch of the economy at the moment and feeling how things are. The youth can relatively tell them and explain to them what the policies and the agendas of the administration and the government and the representation of the people they've put in there are doing, or are helping them at the moment, or are leading them through, in order for them to have a peace of mind and say, okay, definitely democracy will trickle down to me because Mr. A, Mr. B, who I see from unit to unit, word to word, is involved in governance.
Well, Mr. Great, you've spoken greatly about the family structure, which you've called the family tree, that can metamorphose into a larger scope of the society.
Of course.
And we have more involvement in politics. But then again, most people that stay in remote communities, in rural areas, they tend to perceive politics as a dirty game. They tend to perceive politics as a sacred cow that's reserved for a selected few. If you like, you can call it an oligarchy system. That is a government of the selected few. We tend to see that play out over and over again. So this can also scare most rurals from wanting to get involved. Of course, you can't rule out the fact also that we've seen a lot of politicians do magic in the name of canvassing for vote towards elections. I'm asking at this point, is the federal government giving out enough orientation to people at the grassroots to be able to understand what politics is, so that we can when we say youths are not getting involved, or they are partially getting involved, or they are completely getting involved, let's tie it to orientation. Are they being given the right orientation from the school system, our educational system, then narrow it down before we now even come back to the family?
Yes, quite a quite a very elaborate question there, and a very tricky one too, Godwin. For me, I definitely see it in this way. Orientation is a job for every well-meaning Nigerian.
But not everybody get paid to give orientation.
Yes, not everybody get paid. Okay, there's this word they say. I don't. Let me know. I'm not quoting it right now, but they say. I think one of the president candidates in America, or even the president, made that statement. He said, "Don't look at what the country can do for you, but what can you do for your country? It's about service." Never the fact we must be appreciated and paid for our good skills, our intellect, our service to our country, in as much as, we are paying taxes and all the rest. So we also must be appreciated. But then orientation comes with every well-meaning Nigerian individually preaching the good gospel of the country, bringing out the necessary information that should be out there to reorientate Nigerians in respect to, involvement in governance as youths or Nigerians in general. In my unit, in my office, we are having discussions and initiative regarding reorientation to well-meaning Nigerians in respect to having first-hand information regarding the reforms, the opportunity that the federal government and this Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration is bringing forth for youths as well as Nigerians at large. The Nigerian Orientation Agency also are doing their utmost best in respect to reorientating, in the media, traditional media, the social media space, through advert, to collaboration with influencers. We can see the recent, the Minister of Culture, Henatu, she has recently a piece of content that is going around on social media that speaks about Nigerians in a positive light. There's always going to be these discrepancies here and there when it comes to, positivity in our country. But I'm a preacher of positivity in Nigeria. And that leads to also the orientation that has to be trickled down to the grassroots in respect for youths to be involved in governance. We must intentionally, continuously, because I believe in continuity. We see that blueprint posted out in Lagos State from the time of Bola Ahmed, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu as governor. The continuity stretch which has come even till now, the present governor of Lagos, Babajide Sanwo-Olu. There is a continuity, intentionality in respect to orientation, in respect to the rules and laws, the reforms. What are your representatives? What do they do? What are their roles? What does a councillor do? The youths in the community, in the local government, in the unit might not even know what the councillor represents, or what the House of Assembly or the reps, or or what the role of the reps is. And they have this notion, it's just for them to come around maybe once in a while and dole out cash. Meanwhile, if a legislator is supposed to make the laws that would be profitable to you, then if you have that understanding, I believe that the youths would also assist, the leaders to be able to get their job done. It doesn't take away the fact that they have to be taken care of. I mean, those people have trusted you to be there, so you have to take care of them by any means and by the ability that God has given you. You're not going to drop the gun because the request is 10,000 people are getting married and you want to dole out cash for marriage. That won't be the case. Yeah. But then, proper orientation given down to the grassroots will help in even our finances, which for me and my foundation, we are looking at putting out this framework in respect to financial literacy and personal development. And while we were brainstorming with our team, we saw that there is a vacuum there because of the project that we are doing from communities to communities, which has been a part of me from when I was serving in my NYC to when I was with the Voluntary Service Organization UK, which is a voluntary service that also participates in community engagement. We've seen that over the time in the track record, these blueprints get to verily effects on our young minds that we actually dole out this information and this orientation to and this guideline to. So if the government continuously, are very intentional in making sure that orientation gets down to the very least of the community for it to be able to trickle down and then give us a better room to have a knowledge base of what we are doing, it will be of the best, most especially for the roots and the grassroots. It's very, very important. I say there's a debate on the budget about orientation. It's never enough. We in the media business, we can understand this when it comes to ads and it comes to putting out content out there. The budget that you have for ads alone as a business and a brand is never enough. It just means you have to be increasing over time to get the message to the millions of Nigerians that are globally in the world.
Interesting conversation. But then, at this point, knowing fully well that orientation is never enough, in secondary schools right now, we have 3 basic departments for people that have clocked, they got into the 3rd or the 4th cadre in the secondary schools. I think we're talking about senior secondary schools. Okay. And we have the commercial, the art, and sciences. So far, so good. The sciences know little or nothing about governments and governance. And these are people that will form the Nigerian youth. The commercial have little or no knowledge about governance. And these are people that will form the Nigerian youth. Then we have the art students that largely have a course that they call government. They do it, I think it's